Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt. I have lag this severe at the very beginning. But with that, we are now back to our little intro. And of course, as I was saying, massive attacks have happened on Russian infrastructure in the area of St. Petersburg, as we saw Ukrainian drones fly all the way to the very northern end of Russia, right along the Finnish border, striking oil refineries and knocking them out for good. Not only that, we also heard about massive frontline actions in Avdiivka and Bakhmut, and loads of endless amounts of huge news came out today. It is truly an amazing day again as far as the news is concerned, and another successful day of the war in Ukraine. But moving on from that and on into our most breaking and recent news that we got from just a moment ago, we were able to hear that within the city of Vyborg in the Leningrad Oblast, the Russian oil refinery in the city was hit and destroyed by a Ukrainian drone attack. This attack ended up occurring only roughly 16 miles from the Finnish border, meaning that this Ukrainian drone flew all the way from Ukraine's northernmost border and to the very northernmost border of the Russian Federation, near to the area of Finland. We were able to get the footage just 20 minutes ago of the raging inferno that was now being created out of the refinery, and that is the picture right there. It does appear that anything can be targeted inside the Russian Federation, and absolutely anything can also be destroyed as well, with oil refineries now being completely under target no matter where they are, and not a single oil refinery can escape the wrath of the Ukrainian Armed Forces drone operations. Moving on from that little bit of news, we also got to hear of a major fire happening within the area of St. Petersburg as well, and we were able to see a video of this along with several pictures.
Что-то за территорией за нашей, через дорогу прямо.
You see the fire burning right there. And moving on.
Like hippie music in the background is like perfect addition for this fire right here.
Man, they got that going on in the background. It's like, all right, cool. But anyways, we also got a couple of pictures of the massive inferno that is currently coming out of the area of St. Petersburg, and apparently the fire is in an industrial workshop area of the facility, and we can see the fire from this direction as well. And then finally, a final picture right here. But all of these coming together to once again show us that nothing is out of range of Ukrainian drone attacks so far in the war. We are now seeing that Ukrainian drones are truly striking the northernmost areas of the Russian Federation, and Russian air defense is absolutely nowhere to be seen, not intercepting a single drone and causing incredibly serious and unbelievable damage to not only the Russian Federation's armed forces, but to the Russian Federation's oil industry as well, which is the absolute linchpin of the entire Russian economy. Moving on from that and down into the area of Voronezh, speaking of the oil industry, we were able to hear that there is a massive oil crisis that is beginning to occur in Russia because of the Ukrainian strikes. According to information that we have, Ukrainian drone strikes has knocked out approximately 14% of Russia's oil refining capacities, according to the Department of Defense here in the United States. Apparently, the loss in capacity led to a 20 to 30% increase in domestic gasoline prices by mid-March alone, meaning that we saw a 30% price hike over the course of about 3 to 4 months, and prompted a halt in exports to focus on domestic demands. This means that the Ukrainian drone strikes are truly causing serious damage to the Russian war effort, and not only that, to the Russian economy. With the massive price hike of 30% over the course of 3 to 4 months, this is clearly leading us to assume that the Russian Federation will most likely be suffering a large amount of economic stagnation, and not only that, will also be suffering large losses, not only in the economy, but also in the armed forces, as the Russian government is now also having to either purchase this gas at much higher prices, or they're having to end up finding one way or another to screw over the economy to try and keep the armed forces running. Either way, this is not a good look for the Russian Federation, and certainly will not end up being a war-winning strategy. We are still assuming that at this point, the Russian Federation will most likely end up running out of fuel reserves by the later end of this year or the very beginning of next year, but nevertheless, this news is massive, and once again showing that Ukrainian attacks can happen anywhere and everywhere. And speaking of Ukrainian attacks happening anywhere and everywhere, right now over the skies of Crimea, a massive air battle is being fought by the Ukrainian drone forces and the Russian ground air defense forces, as drones were seen flying over the area of Crimea. According to the information, there's around 30 to 100 drones that are in the area flying towards their targets, and here's the clip right here. We hear the drones whirring overhead.
The haunting sound of a lawnmower increases.
Sounds like a two-stroke motorcycle, not gonna lie. Like, a very cheap one.
Up cadet overhead.
Also, I like the VDV badge for the Russian army that they have in the middle of the screen that's flashing, because it's pretty much indicating what will never happen in the remainder of the war is the VDV being an actual fighting force. It's kind of disappearing from the scene. And we can hear another one. And that's the end of that clip. But moving on from that, we then saw a clip come out of Sevastopol that let us hear the, of course, very common sounds of explosions now occurring within the port facilities. I'm going to let y'all just listen to the clip. I'm not going to talk over it much, but here's the clip. And we see a flash.
Oh! Baba Yaga.
And a second one. And a third. We hear another explosion. And that's the end of that clip, but those were the sounds of massive amounts of impacts being, occurring within the area of the port of Sevastopol by Ukrainian drone and missile forces hitting their targets. At the moment, this information only came out about 3 to 4 hours ago, meaning that it's so early that we cannot really call what kind of damage has actually occurred within the area of Sevastopol or the inlet that makes up the bay, or more so the harbor area. We would understand that the top priority targets would most likely be Russian air defenses around the outside of the city. There is also a large amount of Russian ammunition depots just to the eastern area of Sevastopol. We also understand that Belbek Airfield, of course, could be a target again, and not only that, the Russian Black Sea Fleet, its command bases, and also refueling stations are within this port area as well, meaning that those could have also been targets that were attempted to be destroyed or destroyed by the Ukrainians over about 3 hours ago. This is once again showing us that Russian air defense is not only completely depleted within the area of the Russian Federation, it's also nearly depleted within the area of Crimea as well, as we're clearly seeing that there was really no attempt by the Russians to intercept or stop any of these incoming missiles or any of the incoming drones. Absolutely no sounds of air defense were heard over the skies of Crimea, and they're once again showing us that the Russians are truly at the death's doorstep as far as this war is concerned. The war has largely moved from the ground and into the air over Ukraine, or the skies over Ukraine, and we are starting to see that the Russians are starting to lose this war incredibly. While the Ukrainians did not have a large amount of air defense over the past few months, we do know that they're starting to get greatly bolstered by the United States and its incoming support, while the Russians are continuing to flounder with the air defense, taking incredibly high losses in that category, but not being able to furnish or manufacture new replacements to take the spots of the now destroyed air defense systems. This means that over the course of the war, the Russian Federation has slowly been stripped of its air defense as they've moved air defense systems that were within the reserve areas into the actual operational zone inside of Ukraine. And then in turn, now that a large amount of those air defense systems have also been destroyed as well, they're now moving air defense even out of Crimea and into the actual area of the special military operation within Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk, to try and keep up some sort of viable air defense within the area, although that is not going to be a sustainable practice for the Russian armed forces or the Russian air defense. This is also leading us to believe that the Ukrainians are certainly going to be able to most likely bring a war-changing event with the arrival of the F-16 Fighting Falcons. The F-16 Fighting Falcons can fire AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles and also coordinate with them a fairly good deal, or more so, the aircraft is able to interface with the missile, and that makes the missile's targeting and destruction of enemy radar sites far more effective than what we are currently seeing right now with the AGM-88 HARMs being fired from Su-27s or MiG-29s. This means that Ukrainian seed missions will be greatly increased in its efficiency, and not only that, that means that the remainder of Russian air defense systems that are mostly inside of the frontline areas around Ukraine will mostly be destroyed, and that will mean that the Ukrainians have complete air supremacy over the region. Which is going to be a massive thing going forward. But moving on out of the area of Sevastopol, we are starting to hear a lot of people making the mention. And also, by the way, before I talk about that mention, the Crimean bridge was closed today. Not really a lot to talk about there, but it's happening quite often at this point. But beyond that, a lot of people have been talking about the Ukrainian drone strikes disrupting 14% of Russian oil production, or more so, Russian gas production, because the oil refineries don't produce oil, they produce gases for the large part. And I want to make sure that we make that clear, because the Russians are producing at this point still massive amounts of crude oil. The problem is that they don't have enough usable fuel products, because you cannot pour crude oil into a car, and you cannot pour it into a main battle tank either. It requires refining to be a usable product, or a usable resource for the Russians in the economic sense, and also in the martial sense in the war. And a lot of people have been talking about the gas prices rising 30% over just a few months. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that massive price hike on Russian oil, and what are you thinking about it as well?
So it looks like about 59% said Russia will suffer an economic collapse, while about 20% said Russia might have a small economic downturn, and 14% said Russia will simply buy gas elsewhere. And on this one, I gotta say that if Ukraine keeps it up and they keep attacking all these refineries across the country of Russia, then I think Russia will eventually suffer an economic collapse. But that's probably a good ways down the road, probably at least 6 months to a year. But I'm very confident that with the 20% that said Russia might have a small economic downturn, I think that's almost a certainty at this point, and they're actually already in it. So it's only going to get worse, but the collapse won't come until later. But Enforcer, what say you?
I will have to say that Russia will most likely suffer a small downturn in the meantime, but it will suffer a major economic collapse probably by the end of this year or the beginning of next year. We have been saying that on this channel for quite some time, as oil is one of the most important resources of the modern world. In fact, I would argue it may be the single most important fuel item, or really commodity, that is seen in the world today. Think about it. How do people get to work? They have to have some kind of a transportation to get to work. All in Russia, in Europe, in the United States, regardless of how people are getting to work, regardless of how people are moving around, it requires a massive amount of oil products, either crude oil itself, gasoline, diesel, you name it, but it requires a large amount of it. And the fact that the Russians are starting to lose 14% of their production, they're in about a 600 to 700,000 barrel deficit per day inside of Russia, meaning that they're consuming far more than they're ever producing at this point, and also seeing that the prices have already risen by 30%, this is going to start slowing down every sector of the Russian economy. Because think of everything that requires transportation. Grocery stores require transportation to get the products from their original point to the grocery stores themselves. We also know that really anything else, name anything, and it requires some form of transportation, and in the end, that most likely is involving some kind of a fuel product, such as diesel, gasoline, or some form of oil, to be able to move from point A to point B. And if the Russians continue to see the gas prices rising higher and higher, and not only that, the Russian economy is not finding any new oil to put into it at all, no matter the price, that will lead to a complete collapse. Everything will come to a stop if oil ends up drying up, or really usable oil products end up drying up in Russia. That is something that we already know and is known incredibly well. That's why during a lot of conflicts, it has been seen that people will target oil refineries and destroy them because they're such a vital part of a nation's war effort in trying to keep things running. And so I would say that they're most likely going to suffer a downturn here in the near future, but an economic collapse by the end of this year. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that just because I have an opinion, it does not mean that yours is wrong. You can have your own opinion, and it may end up being right. I may end up being wrong. Who knows? But make sure to keep that in mind. And remember, everyone, I just want to say this because nothing's happening in the live chat. There's no real reason to say this, but I just want to remind everyone, it is an okay thing to disagree in the live chat. You can disagree all day long as long as you're not being pro-Russian about it, and that's totally fine. You can say that the Russians will be perfectly fine. You can say that they're going to suffer a complete collapse. You can say anything you want, as long as everyone keeps it civil and no one gets in fights with each other or treats each other rudely, because that's a big thing on this channel, is always making sure to be polite to each other and making sure to respect one another. But moving on from that, and on into the area of Kharkiv, we were able to see that over the past 24 hours, and I gotta say this with a great deal of pride, over the past 24 hours, the Ukrainian front lines have moved slightly near Bukhrovatka. It does appear that the Russians are moving a little bit in the forests around the Seversky Donets River. The battle for Bukhrovatka is still on, though, and Ukrainian forces have not given up the town. The battle for Vovchansk is still ongoing as well. We have heard that Ukrainian forces have apparently been able to rally inside the city and push Russian forces back to the meat packing plant, meaning that Hot Dog Man is now once again on the front lines. And we were also able to see that in the area of the western focal point, that there was a change in the no man's land, but beyond that, we do not see any Russian frontline advance as of today. This means that the Russian Federation has pretty much been stopped dead in its tracks in this area, and it's still taking incredibly high record losses. These two things are very important to consider, because this was a major offensive that the Russians planned on succeeding, and it's now turned into a complete failure. Even in the middle of the wide open fields of the fringe frontier of the Kharkiv Oblast, we are seeing that really nothing is happening at all out there as far as frontline change, and that Ukrainian defenses are holding unbelievably wildly strong, even beyond my expectations, to be quite honest, because I did expect that the Ukrainians are most likely going to move back to Lipsy and also Neskuchny and Zelene, but we're not even seeing that at the moment. I was expecting that really over the next, the past 24 hours, and that has not happened, so I'm honestly wildly shocked about how well Ukrainian defenses are doing and how poorly the Russian offensive is doing in turn. But moving on into the video clips and footage that we got, we were able to see a couple out of the Vovchansk area where the Ukrainians were hitting Russian forces. This is apparently may have been a ground-launched small-diameter bomb impact that we see right here, leveling this building in the northern Vovchansk area and taking out the Russians inside.
Isn't that the Vovchansk hospital?
I'm not really sure. Good question, though.
Yeah, it looks just like it.
Kinda does. I can't really tell, but let's see here. Let's see. So we got the White Wall. Maybe that is Vovchansk Central Hospital. Let's see here. So let's take a look. White Wall. Nah, that doesn't line up. White Wall's down here. Not really in the same way we see them here. So it doesn't look to be one of the Vovchansk Central Hospital buildings. I believe it's actually one of the high-rise buildings somewhere up here in this area of the city, right about here. It may be one of those, or it may be this building, actually, because this one, nah, I'm doubting that, honestly. Let's go back down here and look at these. I'm not really seeing any white walls around here, so sadly, I couldn't tell you where this is, but it doesn't really look like the Vovchansk Central Hospital to me, although hopefully someone can geolocate it. But here's the clip of the building being hit by multiple ground-launched small-diameter bombs.
I see Grant Naduke said in the live chat, it kind of looks like a demolition charge almost, and it kind of does, like the way that explosion is going off, it's like it's coming out of the building instead of like going into it, but I guess that's just the way the attackers fell.
The ground-launched small-diameter bombs. But with that, we were moving on into our next clip, where we got to see the Ukrainian Air Force also bombing Russian positions in the Vovchansk area. Here's another clip, and when you see bombs falling near to a building that looks very identical to the one we just saw last. Once again, we don't really know which one this is. We see a building getting hit here as well. And that's the end of the clip, but still showing heavy Ukrainian action on the outskirts of Vovchansk, attempting to inflict high casualties on Russian forces in the area. Meanwhile, we also got to see a 42nd Brigade 2S1 Gadzivka in the foreground, and we got to see it right here, firing and operating. I got to say, wonderful to know, wonderful to see, and great to know that Ukrainian artillerists are working hard in this area to try and suppress Russian forces and stop them from advancing any further forward. Meanwhile, we also got to see a couple of Mi-24s on a returning from home, a little flight, and we can see that right here. Pretty cool, I'm not going to lie. And with that, That's the end of the clip, but very nice to see that they were able to hit their targets and then return home, hopefully safely. But moving on out of that and back into our frontline analysis, at the moment, I would like to say that we can get at least a general idea of what the momentum is going to be leading to in this area. But that's the thing, there's no momentum. At the moment, it appears the Ukrainian defenses are holding as strong as they ever can, and the Russians are making practically no movements forward in any direction. Given this fact, it would be a little bit superfluous, or pointless really, to try and describe what the Russian forces plan on doing, because their advance is going to be so slow that it's not really like we need to have a big ground map for where they're going to be heading. Really, they're just heading forwards at this point, but in no specific goal or aim, because they're not moving at a kind of speed or momentum to really allow them to have a specific goal or aim that would be achievable within such a small amount of time that the battle plan wouldn't have changed completely by that point. So at the moment, this front line has completely died, really, and while there's 30 to 50,000 Russian combat troops involved in this offensive, it doesn't appear that that will be changing what's happening on the ground. It is a complete massacre of the Russian army down there, and it looks like this was a complete oversight and a failure by the Russian armed forces and the brand new Minister of Defense, the banker man, which I don't even know his name, but it's not Shoigu anymore. That's all I know. But moving on from that little bit of news, in the Kharkiv Oblast, we were also able to get some fairly interesting news out of the area of Kyiv, because we were able to hear that the air defense report looked really damn good. 13 Shahed 136s were destroyed overnight in the area, which is incredibly good to see, and is once again proving to us that the Ukrainian armed forces are inflicting incredibly high damage on the Russian drone attacks, and once again, very few of them are making it through. With that, we're now going to be moving on out of the Kyiv area and on into our location unknowns, and we have quite the juicy ones tonight. Starting off with our first clip, we got to see a nice video presented by United 24 on the glide bombs of Ukraine. But nevertheless, well actually, more so glide bombs and double taps, which are Russian tactics and weapons that are being used in the war in Ukraine. But without further ado, here is the video.
Guided aerial bombs, also known as guided bomb units, GBUs, are old Soviet aerial bombs upgraded with extendable wings and a guidance system. This is how even a distant explosion of such munition looks from an underground fortification. Only in April, Russians dropped over 3,200 guided aerial bombs on Ukraine. This is a part of Russia's new strategy in the war against Ukraine. How will this affect the front? And how can thousands of such explosions be countered? It will be a difficult period. Mid-May, early June, it will be tough. Russians have intensified attacks along the front line stretching over 1,000 kilometers. In some areas, Ukrainians are already forced to retreat. There are two reasons for this: the prolonged absence of assistance from allies and a change in Russian tactics. The mentioned 3,200 guided aerial bombs dropped by Russia in just 1 month represent a devastating force. A standard Russian artillery shell of 122mm creates a 6 meters wide and up to 3 meters deep crater in the ground. A KAB 500 guided aerial bomb carries nearly 200 kilograms of explosives, equivalent to 51 shells. A KAB 1500 can carry nearly 1,000 kilograms of explosives, equivalent to 265 shells. The crater from such bomb can fit a 9-story building.
Dang!
During the Battle of Avdiivka, Ukrainian positions were bombarded with 60 to 80 GBUs in just 1 day. The explosive power of that many bombs is equivalent to around 20,000 shells per day. On February 17th, Ukrainians were forced to withdraw from Avdiivka. Russians produce a wide range of guided aerial bombs. They began by converting 250 and 500 kilogram bombs into guided ones. However, as of today, they have already equipped the 1.5-ton FAB 1500 and cluster RBK 500 bombs with similar modules. Recently, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu was presented the heavy-duty FAB 3000 with a payload of nearly 1.5 tons of explosives. The new Russian
Shoigu was looking
strategies-
pissed off in that video right there. He was like livid, and also he had that like crackhead guy behind him.
Yeah, look at him. He's like, my life is miserable. I know I'm good. You know what he looks like? He looks like the Doomer Wojak in that picture, right? Let me go pull up the Doomer Wojak. 1 second.
I wonder if he knew he was going to be sacked, like when we watched that video, because he seemed a little like odd, like in that one, like downtrodden.
You know what he looks like right there, Matthew? He looks like this.
Oh, yeah, man, that's I think that looks closer to hot dog, man, honestly, like than Shoigu.
Aw, man, my channel is dying. But beyond that, he kind of does look like it a little bit. But anyways, back to the video.
Sergei Shoigu was presented the heavy-duty Fab 3000 with a payload of nearly 1.5 tons of explosives. The new Russian strategy is to bombard everything ahead of them with aerial bombs, to destroy any fortifications and anything that could be used as cover. Even the most skilled fighters cannot secure and defend themselves amid the ashes. Thus, Ukrainians are forced to retreat. In mid-May, Russians launched a new offensive on one of Ukraine's largest cities, Kharkiv. The Economist, citing Vadim Skibitsky, deputy chief of GUR, reports that the Russian group of troops in this area consists of 35,000 servicemen, and it is expected to increase to 50 to 70,000 in the near future. Such major cities like Kharkiv or Sumy already feel the impact of GBU strikes. Russians have repeatedly used these heavy bombs to strike populated areas. But is there a way to counter this tactic? Intercepting the bombs mid-flight is nearly impossible. Once dropped, they fly no more than 70 seconds or even less, appearing as small dots on a radar before quickly waning. Yet a guided bomb works best when launched from high altitude, and the higher the pilot flies, the easier it is for air defense systems to detect his plane and strike him down. As of today, there is only one format of countering GBUs. You shoot down Russian carriers. It works. We shut down many of their planes. But Russians are moving forward and creating GBUs that are dropped from longer distances. Thus, we have to counter them with longer-range air defense systems. In total, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine, they shut down 350 Russian aircraft over 2 years of war. However, such success has a downside. To drop a GBU, Russian aircraft now approach the front line at 40 to 50 kilometers, quickly drop the bomb, and retreat. To intercept them at such a distance, Ukrainians need to bring precious Patriot or NASAMS systems closer.
I'm going to have to actually give a little bit of a disclaimer here. The NASAM system has a maximum range of 16 miles, so they are not moving NASAM systems onto the front lines to deal with the Su-34s that are dropping their bombs at about 40 miles behind the lines. The Patriot's really the only one that could reach them. Maybe some Kubes, maybe some S-300 systems could as well, but the NASAMS is a much shorter range air defense system, very similar to David's Sling or maybe even the Iron Dome system in Israel, and for that reason it would not be used to shoot down aircraft at that distance.
To the front line. It is not just their cost that makes them precious. Ukrainians have only a few batteries of these modern systems. Moreover, they're needed to protect large cities that Russia constantly attacks with missiles. After all, only Patriot systems can shoot down ballistic targets. Hence, Ukrainians have to solve a complex problem: how to defend cities and industrial objects with a limited number of air defense systems and restrain Russian aviation with GBUs on the front line simultaneously. However, being insufficient, air defense systems are also not the only response to Russian GBUs. Modern aircraft, such as the F-16, are capable of countering Russian aviation from a long distance using powerful radars and air-to-air missiles. According to the New York Times, 12 Ukrainian pilots, less than a proper squadron, will be ready to fly F-16s this summer after 10 months of training in Denmark, Britain, and the United States. However, by that time, only 6 out of approximately...
Yes?
On the F-16s with the training, I saw someone bring this up yesterday. How long does it typically take to train an F-16 pilot versus the 10-month crash course that the Ukrainians are getting?
Let's see, F-16 training time. Let's see how long that would take on average. The full F-16 basic course, also known as the B course, is typically a 9-month process for pilots fresh out of pilot training. Broadly, it consists of academics, time in the simulator, and live sorties. So about 9 months on average.
And that's just for the basic course, though? It's not like for the more advanced ones like we give our pilots?
Let's see. Let's see here. I'm not really seeing a lot of people saying that it includes anything more than basic training, so it looks like 9 months is really the average at this point.
Well, whatever training they're getting, I saw someone bringing up the point yesterday, more like a concern, that maybe the Ukrainians aren't getting the appropriate training to be necessarily like ace pilots. But in my opinion, it's really not necessary for them to be ace pilots. They simply need to get these jets in the air. That's all they need at this point. And they don't have to be experts. They can learn as they go through experience. But I saw someone bring that up yesterday. I was curious what you thought as well.
It sounds like a good point. And it's something that you probably have to consider is that and also that's why the Air Forces Air Forces around the world hate to lose pilots due to fatalities or any kind of injuries, because pilots are very hard to train. They're very expensive, as a matter of fact, because that amount of training is incredibly expensive. It costs millions of dollars to train a pilot. And so for that reason, when a pilot is lost, it can be as bad as losing an aircraft itself in combat. But with that, we're going to be getting back to the clip. But before we do, really cool thing right here. You may notice, Matty, that this F-16 has red stars on it. This F-16 is actually a part of an aggressor squad here in the United States, which simulates enemy aircraft for war game purposes.
Oh, that's pretty neat. That's pretty advanced. Never heard of that, actually.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think some of them are based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, but I think some of them are also based out of Alaska as well, but I'd have to look into that one a little bit more. But getting back to the video.
45 promised Allied F-16s will be delivered to Ukraine. What our partners are ready to give us this year accounts for 10% of what we need to defeat so many Russian aircraft, to fight and win. Not just say, hey look, we have F-16s. NATO forces have an analog of GBUs, JDAM bombs. Ukraine even received a small number of such munitions. However, Russians have devised ways to jam the GPS guidance systems of these bombs, so JDAMs have proven to be not very effective in this war. That said, in early May, the war zone reported that JDAMs are being equipped with self-guidance systems to target GPS jamming devices. On the other hand, the receiver of the satellite navigation signals of a Russian GBU is protected by a CRPA antenna, which helps suppress ground interference. Meanwhile, Russians are producing and dropping more and more guided aerial bombs. And to strengthen their air component, they're even building a new airfield in the Belgorod region bordering Ukraine. Currently, the runway is already being paved. The key to victory in war is constant development. At the beginning, Russians advanced with kilometers-long columns of armored vehicles. Ukrainians destroyed them. The aggressor then began to attack with cruise missiles. Ukrainians learned to systematically shoot them down. Mobile fire groups successfully counteract Iranian drones. Now the Russians are attacking with GBUs. Squadrons of F-16s, modern air defense systems, and new developments in electronic warfare can also help with this problem. With the help of allies from the civilized world, Ukrainians must make a move in response. Otherwise, this world and its values will suffer defeat.
That's the end of that clip, but giving us a really insightful look into the glide bombs that are currently being used by the Russian Federation inside of Ukraine and the kind of challenges it's once again imposing to the modern battlefield that's currently unfolding. But at the moment, a lot of people have been talking about the whole thing that's been going on with the Ukrainian ATACMS missiles, which seems to also be another counter of the Ukrainians to the Russian aviation attacks, is to just destroy the aircraft before they ever even take off. And some people have been wondering, should Ukraine blitz Crimea with ATACMS missiles or conserve missiles with smaller sized attacks over a longer period of time? And a lot of people have actually had many different opinions on this. In fact, it's really two opposite sides that people are landing on. And Matthew, what are people saying about that, and what are you thinking?
So it looks like the most popular option, about 50% of the people said blitz Russia with everything Ukraine has right now. 34% said conserve ATACMS with small attacks, and 10% said unsure. And on this one, I gotta say, it looks like Ukraine is taking the first option because Crimea has been absolutely lit up in the past few days, especially even today. There was explosions all over Crimea from ATACMS missiles. So Ukraine is definitely not holding back. But one thing Ukraine must always keep in mind, which this is the problem they ran into before, is they can't rely on the U.S. to replenish the stocks immediately, because while the U.S. is committed to help Ukraine, all the support isn't guaranteed. So just like they found out with the aid package, which got held up a while ago, that could happen later on down the road, and they should keep that in mind before firing everything off. But indeed, if they can afford to shoot them, go ahead, but just keep in mind that, you know, the supplies are not unlimited. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with Matthew. I would have to say that ATACMS should be conserved. Who knows how long the support will go on? Things are possibly going to change. We don't know, and it's best to prepare for the worst case scenario, even if it isn't going to happen. So I would say that they probably should conserve the ATACMS with smaller attacks at the moment, instead of going out with the blitzes and just obliterating everything. Because in the future, the Russians will replenish or refresh the air forces and ground air defense forces inside of Crimea, and then what does Ukraine have to strike with? They have nothing. So better to conserve than to use everything right now. At least that would be my opinion at the moment on that matter, because otherwise we could be looking at another pretty tough situation for Ukraine supply-wise, and things could start to get much more difficult. But moving on from that and out of that little question, it's now time for us to move on to a little picture of the 35th Brigade of the Separate Marines in training. We see them here clearing buildings. Also, take a look at these AKs, Matthew. Ooh, wait! I've never seen a muzzle brake like that on an AK-74. And also, this thing is so old, Matthew, like all the paint's gone. It may so just be like a stainless steel AK.
That's when you know they're really good. When you see them like marred up and like kind of chewed up a little bit like that, you know they've been putting in some work.
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie, Mandy, I'm starting to kind of get a little bit of a feel for these folding stocks on the back of these AKs. I mean, they kind of are a little cool. It's just, I don't know, they're not that comfortable in reality. The folding stock kind of like, this folding skeleton stock, I guess is the best thing you can call it. They're not really that comfortable, and also they're very narrow, but beyond that, they're not bad, and they also save a lot of weight. And not only that, you can make the rifle a lot more compact by folding the stock, and that makes it a little bit easier to carry. But still, pretty nice to see the 35th Marines in training. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see that an MTLB tried to escape. A Russian MTLB tried to escape, and y'all know that we already said the past tense of tried, and that means that this thing did not make it out. And there we go. And it did not make it hardly even any feet at all, and now the MTLB is running out of control like a wild animal. And we can see them bailing out of the vehicle. Now that's come to a stop. And oh my goodness, no freaking way, dude. That guy hopped off the top of that MTLB, man, and straight onto an anti-personnel mine. Did you see that?
Let me see it again because I missed it.
Watch, he goes, and oh my god.
Jeez.
And then
the tank got smashed.
Yeah, and then an artillery shell lands in the middle of the woods right on the MTLB and wipes it out. Bad luck for those guys. I mean, that was the worst of luck. They hit an anti-tank mine, then that guy hops off onto an anti-personnel mine, and then an artillery shell blows up anyone else who was left. That was just a triple whammy altogether. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see apparently a foreign volunteer of the Russian army trying to fight a drone with a stick. Here's the clip. And we're going to mute the... But anyways, we can see the drone flying around. And you see this guy waving his stick at it.
Oh, he's...
He's like, no, you stop. He's like, stop, bad drone. And the drone's just toying with him. He's like, no, what are you doing? Stop it. Just so he's going to walk around the tree again. And the clip ends there, but I thought it was just a little interesting to watch and thought I'd show it to y'all. But moving on from that and into our last bit of location unknown news, we were also able to see the Russian casualty report as well. And great googly moogly, that thing is juicy.
Oh my goodness. Man, what are the Ukrainians somebody's letting the Ukrainians cook out here. 6 Bobcats again, over 1,000 troops. I'm telling you what, it looks like it's a massacre out here.
And I'm telling you what, it pretty much is. With 6 Bobcat skid steers being destroyed, 1,210 Russian soldiers being wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, 43 armored personnel carriers, 65 supply trucks, 13 main battle tanks, 36 artillery pieces, 35 drones, 1 aircraft, 3 cruise missiles, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system. It has been a whopper of a day in every single metric and every single number. These are numbers that the Russians are going to be reeling for in the loss category for quite some time, and I'd have to say that I am happy to see that the Russians are getting obliterated. But moving on from that and out of the casualty report, it's now time for us to start moving on into the large part of the front lines, where a lot of these losses were had today outside of KHARKIV. But before we get into that, multiple folks have thrown in some really interesting questions. I want to make sure that we can touch on at least a few of them. And Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first super chat of the night, we have one from K-Dub Janky, who is a longtime channel legend, who puts in a very generous $50 donation. Thank you very much, Janky, for that support. They said, communism, fascism, capitalism. Sick of isms, he says. World is divided by money, not ideals. And the West concentrates wealth in corporation, they said. Europe in royalty and businesses. And the East in dictators. LSU University, professors enforcer.
And I thank you so much for the support, K-Dub Janky. And that is largely true. And that's something that I always find very interesting when people say wars are fought over, let me think. Like, what would be a good way? Let me think of some of the things people say.
Wars are fought, or wars are started by angry old men, and they're fought by young naive men, or young naive boys, more like it.
Well, that's one way to put it. I was going to say something along the lines of, a lot of people say that wars are fought because of religion or something along those lines. But the fact of the matter is that most every single kind of war that starts with a different reason always comes down to money, or really economic prosperity. Like, everything at its root will come down to economic prosperity. And I see a lot of people saying religion and money. I'm gonna have to disagree with the religion thing, because I'll be honest with y'all, looking back into the medieval era, even the early medieval era, the religious wars really had not a lot to do with the religions they were a part of. It more so had to do with expanding the control that these religions had that brought in more money. And so that's kind of how it really boiled down. Like, for example, with the Crusades did end up taking if you want to call it the Holy Land by the Crusaders' terms, and created the Kingdom of Jerusalem. But at the same time, it kind of ended up becoming a trade hub and ended up producing a decent amount of money for the papacy. And then, of course, they ended up losing it, and then it started ending up losing money in the end. And the Fourth Crusade was really the last nail in the coffin. But beyond that, clearly, in my opinion, I think that everything is really fought for money. I mean, like, that's really what everything does come down to. Because think about it. Let me think of a war. Let me think of one. You know what? We'll go with the classic, World War II. World War II was fought for money, because Japan was trying to create the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere, which was going to be this massive Japanese sphere that would produce loads, bukus of money for Imperial Japan. The Germans started World War II in Europe because of Hitler's idea of autarky, of trying to create a Germany that was completely self-sufficient and didn't require trade with foreign countries, thus making sure to contain the wealth and capital of the German nation within the German state entirely. That is, once again, boiling down to money, really. And of course, you know, then a lot of people say the World War II was fought because Hitler didn't like the Jews. The Jews were honestly a secondary target, which is really the craziest thing about that, is that the most heinous atrocity ever committed on the face of Europe was really a secondary notion to the German government. But beyond that, the primary notion was realizing the idea of a German autarky. And it's a very interesting thing. I'd highly suggest that y'all don't know what the autarky is, to go find Mustache Man's book and read it. And I'm not saying because it's a good book or anything. I'm saying that because it really gives you the exact mindset and roadmap, literally, of what the Germans did in World War II before they did it, and why they did it, at least according to Mustache Man's ideology. So going off of that, once again, it boils down really entirely to money. Now let's think of another war, World War I. World War I was probably the only war that really didn't end up getting fought for money that I could think of off the top of my head, because it was really just fought out of a matter of principle, considering that the Archduke of Austria-Hungary, the heir apparent to the throne, was executed, or really assassinated in Sarajevo, and that's what led to World War I. But let's think of another one, the Crimean War. That's a very good one, fought against the Russians by the Turks, the British, and the French. That war was one that was fought over money, because it was going to change the balance of power in Europe if the Russians won against the Turks. And if the Russians won against the Turks and changed the balance of power in Europe, the Russians were going to be able to get a little bit more of their finger in the pie of money. And that was something that no European country was happy with and would allow, and that's why everyone intervened. Time and time again, when you come down to the final reason, it's really about wealth. And some people say wealth and power. And I would say, honestly, power comes through wealth. Because what country is powerful that has no wealth? And that's something that always comes, and once again comes back to it. The United States has a lot of power, and it's not because we just have power, it's because we have wealth. We're the richest country on earth here in the United States, and if it was not for that fact alone, the United States would not be the most powerful nation on earth, militarily, economically, and everything else in between. And it's like that for every country out there. It's like that when you look at the economy itself, when you divide it down. The most powerful people in the in the nation are usually some of the most wealthy people in the nation. And so once again, it really just comes down to money. And y'all would not believe this. I'm actually going to blow y'all's mind. That is a Marxist idea of thinking, cutting it down to money and things like that. And some people are going to be like, what? Like, what the hell do you mean? So, in history, there are many different schools of thought about how history progresses. And some of them, one of them, which is the classical mindset on history, is the great men philosophy, where great men did things that changed the world, and they're really the only reason that anything progressed at all or anything changed at all. But with the introduction of Karl Marx in the Communist Manifesto, a new kind of thinking emerged, and it's actually one that's used a lot to this day, not because it's like a commie kind of a thing, it's just how people look at it. And it has to do with capital exchange around the world. Who has more money, who has less money, and that really ends up being the ultimate determinant of power in between countries and the motivators in between why wars are fought. And that's actually called, I believe, a Marxist lens of history. And so that is a little whack because I hate communism, and then the one thing I honestly think that is an honest answer to why wars happen. And then it's called a Marxist historical lens. I'm like, that has got to be the stupidest thing. Like, why can't we call it something else? Just like a capital historical lens. I think I'm going to call it that from here forward, because I'm honestly not a big fan of Karl Marx. He was a little bit goofy, a little bit stupid, and if you ever read the Communist Manifesto, a lot like Mustache Man's book, like, you can get the idea of where communism comes from, but it's absolutely stupid in the meantime. It just doesn't make sense when you think about applying any of that stuff into real practice. Like, for example, autarky. Autarky makes no sense when you really cut it down, because the Germans just planned on taking over all of Eastern Europe, enslaving the population, and having like this agricultural haven out here, and also some oil fields. And then meanwhile in Germany, that's where the industrial heart would be, and also where all the wealth would end up. And from what we know from economic gaming that ended up happening after the war, that kind of an idea for Germany would have completely failed. They would have ended up a lot like Franco's Spain. It would have been an economic failure and pretty much living in an endless recession. And so it was stupid. And really, communism, or really Marxism, is a pretty dumb idea as well, because when you look at Marxism, because I actually had to read the Communist Manifesto in college along with Mustache Man's book because it was required reading. But when you read it, you're like, what the hell was this guy even thinking? Like Karl Marx says, a worker has the right to choose his job, a clockmaker by morning, a fisherman by evening. It's like, wait a minute, so you're just throwing Adam Smith's division of labor like entirely out of the window? This man's got to know how to like work like 50 different jobs? It's like, that would suck. Like, that would completely suck. And not only that, how in the world do you actually organize anything in the economy on any level to get anything done? That's why communism just doesn't work. And that's also why no communist government has ever ended up going with a true Marxist philosophy, because it's flawed to the core. I mean, it literally is just completely flawed to the core because of that kind of principle. That's why all communist governments end up with a command economy, where the economy is centrally run by the government, and really unemployment is subject to imprisonment, because there's really no other way to organize the economy without some kind of a higher power or structure allowing for an organization to allow for mass-produced industrial goods in the modern age. But anyways, that is a whole aside of its own, really fighting against fascism, specifically Hitler's form of fascism and communism, because I'm just not a big fan of either. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope I was able to address that the best I can, and also throw in an interesting rabbit hole, because folks like you have helped to make this channel possible for a long time, KW Janky, and I hope I was able to add on a little bit to your interesting comment that you made. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and also thank you for being a huge supporter of the Lee Spring Army and helping to make this channel possible day in and day out. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
All right, and our next one goes to Ari Sowini, Kiwi Wife and Finn, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Kiwi Wife and Finn, very much for that support.
Hey!
Then they said, LSA.
And OSA! And thank you so much, Ari Sowini, Kiwi Wife and the Finn, for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing rolling, because that is amazing to know that it is entirely just by the will of the Lee Spring Army alone that this channel continues to survive. And not only that, this community continues to thrive. It is unbelievable to think that there are 7.5 thousand people here at the moment, and we've already reached the peak of the stream at around 8.4 thousand people. Absolutely incredible. And thanks to folks like you, Ari Sweeney, well, thanks to both of y'all, Kiwi Wife and Finn, we are able to make this channel reality for thousands of people, tens of thousands of people each and every night. We are greatly appreciative of that. I cannot thank y'all enough for helping this channel to keep on running and helping to keep this amazing vision and dream of a news channel alive. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the Ukraine war news.
All right, and this one goes to Narvet15, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Navvet, actually, for that support. That is very generous of you. And he said, Enforcer Matt, after Ukraine wins, how long before they are fully integrated into NATO and the EU?
I would say it will most likely happen within a 6-month to 1 year time frame. After the war is over, we'll see that that Ukraine is brought into the European Union and also brought into NATO. I'll be entirely honest with y'all. The one that's going to be more difficult to get into will probably be the European Union for Ukraine, because Ukraine has to meet certain kinds of requirements to be able to get into the European Union. And not only that, after the Greek economic collapse of 2000, I believe it was, what was it, Matthew? 2010, 2011, something like that?
Something like that.
After that collapse, it ended up shaking the EU to its core, that a singular small country could end up devastating the entirety of the EU's economy if the situation was worse. And so now they're a lot more exclusive about what countries they'll allow entirely into the European Union. And Ukraine may run into those problems after the war, especially if they end up becoming a monolithic economy with a single kind of product that they end up exporting. And that, I believe, for Ukraine is agricultural products such as grains and other kinds of food sources like that. So they may be a little bit scared to bring Ukraine in, because if the agricultural industry ever went under, the whole nation of Ukraine is going under with it, and that could end up jeopardizing the rest of the European Union's economic system. So that might be a little difficult for them, but I'd still say it would be around 6 months to a year before they would be able to completely enter. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that the best I can, and thank you to all three of y'all once again for the support and helping this channel to be possible, because it is folks like y'all who make this thing a reality day in and day out for everyone else. This channel is ad-free and sponsor-free. No one has to support this channel with a single dime to keep this thing running, but nevertheless, y'all do, and that is the only way that we actually make this thing possible, and we are entirely grateful to every single one of y'all for enjoying this channel enough and finding it worthwhile to support. And with that, we are now going to be moving on into the area of the Crimea forest, where we're able to see that the Kraken unit ended up hitting some Russian forces. Check it out. And we're going to be muting that. But anyways, we can see the Russians running around this vehicle. Ooh, getting hit. Rip.
Oh, did he just fall flat on his face?
Man, that's what they call in Russia lying flat.
Man. Oh.
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 Oh. Oh, and there's a Russian right there. Look at him. He's wandering around. Oh. Oh. Get him again. Oh. Dang. Dude, they're going off. And also, Don C. said, how's Hungary in the European Union if they are essentially a dictatorship? Don't ask questions. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'll try and get you an answer to that question later on in the live chat, hopefully by that point. But moving on from that and down to the area of Zolotarivka, we did get to see that a Russian house got blown up by the Terra unit today. And we see the drone hovering around the tank. You see it floating around, hovering around. And here it comes into its final approach to hit the hulls and knock it out. And bada boom, jaga jaga bliet. We can see that it's been hit. We now see them bringing in another drone to hit the house that has now been detract. And bada boom, jaga jaga, right into the engine bay. Pretty.
Oh dear, it looks like all that scrap metal didn't help it after all. It got a little banged up out there.
Man, banged up abroad. Moving on from that and down into the area of Bakhmut near Bodanivka, we did get to see a massive Russian column being destroyed outside of Chesiv Bliet. Alright, I don't know what song that is, but that I know is copyrighted. We can see the Russian column advancing down the road towards Chasiv Yar, but that's when things go awry. As you see, they tried to conduct frontline actions today, and as those of the Ukraine war know, the rule is, thou will get killed if advancing on Ukrainian positions, period. And we now see that these Russians are getting hammered. Vlad and his men were up on their tiny tank, and they were getting pounded. But we can see that they're getting pounded down there.
When in doubt, calling a drone strike.
When in doubt, bomb them again. But anyways, you can see it. We can see the tank. We can see the hulls going crazy down there.
Oh man, the hoss is in top gear. It's
Man,
not like hot dog, man. It knows how to go into top gear and kick it. Oh, scrap.
That's hot dog, man, right there. He never gets out of first gear, man. No matter how much he floors it. Oh, and another one. Oh, and another one.
Another one.
Another one. And we can see another drone hitting the building. Jorge Lopez said, "Do Peter."
Peter, the FPV drone is here.
That just hit him dead on. And we see these Ukrainian drones just smacking. Like, Zoink Scoop, I think there's nothing left. Raggy, casualty 300. Matthew 2 JSM, you can check in, but you can't check out. You know, like the B movie.
Oh, I think, man. I honestly don't remember the B movie. That was too long
You
ago.
don't remember the B movie?
No, I just remember Jerry Seinfeld. He made a serial movie now.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Unfrosted or something like that. It's kind of weird.
That's kind of odd, I'm not going to lie. Moving on from that and into Promovi, we also get to see that a Russian assault group had a very bad day because we can't show that here. Moving on from that, we also get to see a javelin being fired at the Ruski Soldat. Ura.
George Vanzo said, please do George Takai. Oh my.
Oh my.
It's been a long time since that one's been pulled out of the closets.
Oh man, I'm telling you, you get no respect around here. Oh man, I think I just pulled out a pun. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh,
actually,
man.
that was totally unintentional. Actually, I realized after I said, I was like, huh, that actually was like an unintentional thing I said there. It kind of sounded a little bit weird.
Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I get no respect around here. Oh man, I'm telling you.
And we see the Ukrainians here. They're like, look, we blew them up. And they pull up the CLU.
Oh, dear Lord.
Oh, man.
That was so unintentional. I see people latching on that. I was like, are people going to ignore that? Or are they going to acknowledge what I just said right there? And people were like, nope, not letting it go.
Dude, as soon as I heard that, I was like, dude, he just throwing a pun? I was like, did he really just throw a pun on that? That's why I pointed it out immediately.
Lord.
I thought you actually deliberately meant to do that. I was like, what the hell? I was like, I turned into Peter Griffin on Family Guy, dude. I said, what the hell is that? I just sat down. I was like, what the hell is that? But we can see no frontline advances in Bakhmut as per usual. No frontline changes to speak of. But moving on down from that and down into the area of Avdiivka while the live chat is going wild. We're now going to be moving on down towards Otradtine, where we got to see the Russian forces were defeated. We're going to be muting that, but we can see the Russians moving around. And we see the FPV drones moving in and hitting the lead tank. Ooh, and the lead tank slammed into a crater. Everyone got whiplash. Bad day overall. These guys had a 1 out of 10 day. It's over for them. Right into the crater. Boop! And they got whiplash. Moving on from that, we can see more Russian vehicles under heavy artillery fire by the Ukrainians.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. Oh, man, I got on the road and I saw your mother. Oh, man, and they were right here. Oh, man, I'm telling you. But beyond
Brutal.
that, man, that was brutal. Oh, man, but I'm telling you, it wasn't as brutal as being a child growing up. Oh, man, I'm telling you, real brutal. Oh, man, I'm telling you.
But let's see here. We got more Russian strikes occurring. Well, actually, Ukrainian strikes on Russian vehicles, and they are just cooking off. Where you see that Russian tank brewing. And where you look pissed at. I'm glad you're feeling great tonight. Yeah, I'm feeling all right, to be entirely honest. But, you know, might as well be in the mood, you know what I mean? But anyways, we can see the Russian tank continuing to roast. And that's the end of the clip. But nice to see. And of course, by the way, we haven't done this in a while. But anyways, moving on from the 47th Magura and down into our next clip in Avdiivka, we also got to see a kamikaze drone destroying Russian tanks down here. Here's the kamikaze. There's the tank. Boop! Dead on the hood. Oh! Toasted even. And that's the end of that clip right there, but nice to see them toasting and roasting and burning and churning. And Zelensky says that he knew Ukrainian counteroffensive won't begin until the front line is stabilized. What the hell are y'all thinking about that? It's like, I don't know why I had to throw it out there so aggressively, but beyond that, Zelensky is saying that he wants to stabilize the front lines before even looking at conducting Ukrainian counteroffensive, and a lot of people are wondering, what should Ukraine do? Should they wait? Should they do it now? Does Zelensky know best? Does Mother know best? What is it? What is the spiel? And Matthew, what have we got?
So on this one, it looks like about 50% of the people said Ukraine should wait until the front line is stabilized to launch the counteroffensive, and then 31% said Zelensky knows what's best here, and 11% said Ukraine should launch it sooner. And on this one, I think it's pretty obvious to me, or at least I'm with the 50%. I think Ukraine should wait until then. It's probably not wise to go ahead and launch that because that would be basically rushing to failure because the front line must be stabilized first. Ukraine can't afford to put troops into an offensive when they're merely trying to hold the front line. So right now it's a very tough battle. The troops are being thrown at the meat grinder bigger than ever right now. That's why the troop losses are so high for the Russian side. And Ukraine really does have to wait until then. So I am 100% in agreement with Zelensky's judgment here, and he knows best. But Enforcer, what say you?
Zelensky knows best. I would have to say he probably does. This is sound planning. You never conduct an offensive while you're kind of on the back foot conducting defensives everywhere, because that eats up vital manpower and resources that would be needed to hold back the Russians and eventually remove the initiative from them so that way you can begin your own offensive. So I would say that this is just basic military strategy, really basic knowledge, to be quite honest, and it sounds like sound decision-making for sure for that reason. And so with that, I hope I was able to address that well, and we're now moving on to the area of Semenivka, where we got to see that a Ruski tank was knocked dead. Here is Will. Here comes tank bleed. Tank go past the other one, and bada boom, chaka bleed. Сука, bleed. Пьюсики да нахуй bleed. Right into the tree line. We can see one Russian over here. He's toasting. Another one flops off. And where's number 3? I'm sure the driver's getting out somewhere. Nope, driver decided to run over one of them. And now he's moving it a little bit on into the trees. Oh, and he hit another mine! No freaking way! Bad luck for him.
Those mines have a little bit of that shockwave behind it. You know what I mean? A little bit of that. Ooh.
Man, I'm telling you, oh, that carp. I don't know why I had to say that. I was like, oh, that carp. But yeah, they do have one hell of a shockwave. Those TM62s that pack a punch. I mean, I mean, those things, man, those things pack a punch more so than a drunk stepdad who just told their stepchild to go get a beer. I mean, packing punches.
Damn.
But moving on from that, and that's dark, but not as dark as those Russians' future because their future is 6 feet under, and that's pretty damn dark down there. But moving on from that and into the area of Staromykhalivka, we did get to see that Russian forces were getting hit down here as well. Look at them go. Oh, and we got the Home Depot music in the background. Have you ever wanted to try and find yourself the highest quality tools and equipment that money can buy? Well, then you, my friend, need to come down to the Home Depot, the only store in the country that has the proper kind of tools and equipment to get the job done. Now, we can see that tank is just burning. I mean, it's obliterated, and it's gone. Rest in pieces. Gone and not forgotten. It will never be forgotten. But beyond that, I do want to show you all a frontline update in this area. Here are the past 24 hours. As you can see, the Russians are not really making any advances. They are not really making it even that close to the area of the second defensive line at this point, and it does seem as though the Russian offensive has now been completely stopped in this area. But that is good news, and great to know. And meanwhile, down in the Staromykhalivka-Krasnoyarivka area, we also saw that no frontline changes were had down here. And also, along the Zaporizhia front, no frontline changes were had down here. Not a single one of them. And so it appears that things are going quite well. Moving on to the area of Novomykhailivka, we did get to see that the 72nd Brigade was hitting some Russian forces in this specific area. I'm going to be muting that. And we can see them dropping a bomb, which sends up a massive cloud of smoke. And we see them dropping another one. On a dirt bike, of all things. And another one.
That doesn't look like a dirt bike. That looks like some cheap little rinky-dink bike.
Matthew likes Ducatis. I'm just letting y'all in on a little secret.
Oh, man. The Russians would never be called a Ducati, I'm telling you.
Man, in these kind of conditions, hell no. Like, a Ducati wouldn't survive out here.
Maybe a multistrada would, but they couldn't quite pull that off.
Man, you know what the Russians ought to get? They ought to get that BMW motorcycle that looks like it's from Nazi Germany. You know, the Geschnickt in Deutsche Bank. It's kind of a motorcycle. What
man,
the hell?
I think the mustache man himself used to cruise right up on that one.
What is that BMW motorcycle called?
It's like an R1200, I think. It's like, and it's the all blacked out one. It looks kind of like sketchy. I don't even know why BMW would put something like that out.
Let's see, BMW. It's not the R1200. It's something else. Let's see here.
It's like one of their vintage bikes, historical ones that they make modern day.
Let's see here if I can find y'all a picture of this exquisite motorcycle that Matthew and me are talking about. Because once you see it, you'll know what I mean. Let's see, I'm going to type in BMW Cruiser, and that ought to be able to find it. BMW Cruiser, and it's made in Berlin too. So you can go to Warsaw and back on a single tank of gas. But Geschnickt bei Leichtmann in Deutschen Volga. It's like, I don't know about that one.
Yeah. There it is. And that one doesn't even look that bad. The one we saw had like the saddlebags on the back and all that stuff. It had like all of the little like party accessories that they'd have put on it back in the, the good old days of the bad man.
The good old days of the Reich. It's like, I wouldn't have been around during those good old days. But damn, I wish we could find like a better picture of this thing, because this just doesn't do it justice, y'all. Like, the one we saw in person, I really thought they were about to be driving into Poland on that thing. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little side note and on into our next clip down on Novomayorsk, where we got to see that the 80th Brigade was hitting the Russians hard. We're going to be muting that. Now you see our drone down here sniffing out the targets. And they found one. I don't know if anyone could hear the sniffing in the microphone. I hope y'all could. Because then there was just like this empty dead space in front of the punchline.
I couldn't hear it.
Dang.
No sniffing.
Man, I hope they were able to hear it, because I think the microphone may pick up more for them than Discord does. But we can see the drone coming on into the warehouse, and bada bing, bada boom, dead on the mark. Second strike. While this seems like entertainment for some of you, especially the commentators, to save lives, this war needs to end. And that's why we're on here, baby, because we're trying to get it to end in the Ukrainians' favor. Go big or go home. Put an LC in the chat. But anyways, we can see the FPV drones continuing to hit the warehouses. Someone said, can you quit shouting? You sound like dull of alcohol. I never heard of dull of alcohol before. That's what I'm going to call someone as
Like
an
a
insult.
hard of hearing.
Dude, that's like...
A dull of alcohol.
Dude, you're a dull of alcohol. That sounds like an insult. But anyways.
Man, I'm sharp of water.
Man, I'm fleek on the sheet. It's like, I don't know. I'm coming up with stuff as we go now. I don't know, man. I just came up with that out of the blue. But anyways, we can see the warehouse getting smacked and obliterated right there. Nice. Love to see it. And love to see the LSAs in the chat, by the way. Keep them rolling. It's beautiful. And with that, that's the end of that clip right there. But very nice to see that they were able to get the job done. From May 17th, which was yesterday, but we got it today. Moving on from that and out of this area and down to the area of Sherbaki, we were also able to see that the Ukrainian OSA shot down a Russian drone in the area, which was pretty sick. Alright, so apparently Interstellar's happening in the background. We can see here the missile being fired from the OSA that is about to hit the drone right there. And it hit, taking it on out. And that's the end of that clip. But nice to see Ukrainian air defense, even near the front lines, is doing its job. Moving on from that and out of the area of the southern front, it's now time for us to move on down into the area of the Dnipro River Reservoir area. And we were able to see that the Ukrainians unfortunately had an operational security failure today as they exposed their position and came under Russian fire. We're showing this clip for educational purposes for anyone who may be in Ukraine, to remind everyone that operational security is always a critically important thing. And while we do not talk about it much on this channel, and it's kind of a prerequisite that all of our videos have a layer of operational security around them, either being a little bit late to the scene or being misrepresented in their location by several miles, it appears that these guys were not that lucky. And I'll be showing you all this clip right here. Alright, we got rock music at the start. Wonderful stuff. Almost about to get copyright. But you see them getting out of the basement. Much like Hot Dog Man's viewers. Yeah, they're getting out of the basement. Now see them setting up their mortar. And we see them continuing to show a blurred out area that we can't see.
That we can't see.
That's English. I'm Englishin, man. And we now see that the Russians got just enough information.
Hey.
What?
Look at that mad dog up there in the corner.
You mean that beaver?
I mean, it could be.
Man, what dog's got giant buck teeth?
Well, a dog from Alabama might.
Man, that dog,
it's possible.
That dog
don't rule anything out.
Dude, that dog's coming out here going, sign the contract, big boy, sign the contract.
It's like a mix between a bear, the teeth of a beaver, and kind of like the shape of a dog. And it's wearing a beret.
A VDV beret, nonetheless. Apparently, the guys in the VDV are mutts. That's what Matthew's trying to get across. They're across of beavers, bears, and dogs. Yeah. Man, they're about to be catching some strays.
Beavers, bears, and dogs. Oh, my.
Dude, the Russians be like, beavers, bears, and dogs, bleed. And then they get hit like that right there. But once again, I do have to remind everyone, this is very important to remind y'all, that operational security is always important. And these guys made a mistake. From what we understand, none of them got killed. I think a few of them did get wounded. But operational security is such an important and critical thing to ensure at all times. You cannot give up on operational security, because if you give up on it, operational security will give up on you. It's kind of like that in Soviet Russia joke, but for real. And another hit by the Russians, dead onto that Ukrainian position. From what we understand, the Ukrainians were in the basement. And with that,
I could hear Jeremy Clarkson saying the line that Jonathan just said in the live chat. Oh yes, it's a glorious Russian bear beaver dog.
you must have been watching Clarkson's Farm recently because that was like,
Yes.
it's like a good insert. I was like, nice, respectable, respectable. Moving on from that and down to the area of the Dnipro estuary, we were also able to see that Stara Zabrivka was getting hit by Ukrainian fire today. Debouche. Debouche. We see debris landing in the water. And I can't believe it. Someone broke our no politics rule by literally coming in here and trying to campaign for someone. Folks, if you ever see that, don't even engage those people. Just ignore them because we'll get them out of here quickly. But that ain't happening on this channel. But with that, we are now going to be moving on from that little bit of news down to the area of the Dnipro River. And we're now going to be heading up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 815 of The Wire. And so, without further ado, no way. Nuh-uh. Hang on. We're going to have to go to YouTube because I'm not believing this. I'm not believing this. Dagnabbit, he's got to have made a speech today. Hang on, y'all. Hang on. Calm down, everyone.
He can't give a speech today. He was in Ukraine, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was in Ukraine. Ukraine.
Oh.
Let's see here. Let's see. So which one is this? Okay, so this is a different one. Okay, so thank goodness we went to YouTube because there is a speech. Thank the Lord. And so, without further ado, it is time for the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And so, here is the speech.
Українці, українки, сьогодні особливий день. Сьогодні ми згадуємо про 1944 депортацію кримсько-татарського народу і вшановуємо пам'ять її жертв. Наша історія містить, на жаль, немало трагічних сторінок того, через що були змушені пройти наші люди. Але якими б не були ці сторінки, гіркими чи страшними, вони вже ніколи не стануть сторінками брехні, і тим більше останніми сторінками для України. Сьогодні, вшановуючи пам'ять жертв депортації кримських татар і засуджуючи тепер російське знущання над Кримом, ми відчуваємо, ми знаємо, що російське зло не є і не буде всесильним. Час окупанта на нашій землі обмежений, і його вигнання неминуче і залежить від того, як ми всі чинимо опір, як ми усі стараємось, щоб об'єднати світ. І як сам світ налаштований на захист людяності та життя. Російська окупація Криму в 2014 році стала насправді перевіркою рішучості для усіх в світі. Належної реакції тоді не послідувало, і Путін вирішив, що він нібито може перерости Крим, нібито може робити більше зла безкарно. 24 лютого поставило у цьому крапку спротивом всіх українців і українок, усього нашого народу, різних людей, різних поколінь, різних поглядів, які однаково зупиняли окупанта. Історична крапка, поставлена тоді, більше ніколи не стане для України крапкою з комою. Ніколи Москва не матиме шансу підкорити нашу країну, наших людей, свідомість та історію. І зараз в боях заради України, в роботі заради України ми досягли такого рівня, коли російське зло навіть на своїй території від наших справедливих відповідей не сховається. Дякую усім нашим воїнам та підрозділам Сил оборони України, які і на цьому тижні довели, що російська держава платитиме за усе, що вона робить проти наших людей, проти нашого суспільства. Я дякую кожному нашому воїну, які проявили достатню стійкість і змогли за цей тиждень додати більше впевненості, зокрема, Харківському напрямку. Окупант втрачає свою піхоту і техніку. Відчутно втрачає. Хоча так само, як і в 22-му році, розраховував на швидке просування по нашій землі. Не забуваємо також і про інші напрямки боїв, окрім харківських, Краматорський, Покровський, Курахівський, південні напрямки всюди, де складно, наші сили дають гідну відсіч окупанту. Зокрема, особливо і окремо дякую хлопцям, які відбили російський штурм Часового Яру. Наші воїни знищили більше 20 одиниць броньованої техніки окупанта. Молодці хлопці. Також дякую кожному представнику нашої держави, всій дипломатичній команді Офісу, нашим урядовцям, нашим посольствам, громадським діячам, які допомагають. Дякую за поступове, покрокове просування у підготовці саміту миру, першого глобального саміту, який відбудеться у Швейцарії. Ми разом з партнерами готуємо справжній майданчик для світу, який дійсно здатен примусити Росію до миру, який Росія не здатна буде обманути. І за цей тиждень ми додали ще нових учасників саміту. Тільки на рівні очільників держав та урядів відбулись мої розмови з Грузією, Канадою, Республікою Корея, Люксембургом, Ліхтенштейном, Малаві, Португалії, Словенії, Франції, Швеції, Ліберія. Також говорив з держсекретарем США. І наступний тиждень теж буде активним з точки зору дипломатії. Українська дипломатія працює разом з українською зброєю заради справедливого миру для нашої держави і справедливого покарання Росії за цю війну. Обов'язково реалізуємо наші українські завдання. Дякую всім, хто допомагає. Дякую всім, хто обрав Україну і забезпечує для нашої держави силу і результат. Слава Україні!
And Herom
Herom
Slava.
Slava.
And with that, while I slam my freaking heel on the bottom of my chair right there, and that hurt like hell, it is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 815 of the war, and that moves us on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to each and every one of y'all. It is going to be a fun time. It's going to be an incredibly fun time for every single one of y'all because we get to talk about literally anything. I mean, it really is one of the funnest segments of the night because we just get to do whatever. I mean, like that one night, several nights ago when we went to, let me see, what was it? Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. And we looked at the hoods around there. That was a fun time. That was a really fun time, as a matter of fact. And hopefully someone gives us a hood review to do tonight. But we can only do hood reviews as requested. We just can't do them on our own because y'all want to see specific hoods. And I only want to show the finest of hoods on this channel. We curate them as best as we can. But with that, Matthew, we have a lot of people talking about Zelensky saying that China supports Ukraine's territorial integrity. And a lot of people seem to be up in arms about that statement, either saying he's right or he's wrong. And Matthew, are people agreeing with that kind of a statement? And what are you thinking about it as well?
So it looks like people across the board are slightly confused on this one because the answers are quite widely distributed. And it looks like 31% said no, Zelensky is wrong. China does not support Ukraine's territorial integrity. 28% said Zelensky is right. China does support Ukraine. And 22% said, partially yes. And on this one, I gotta say, this has been a weak spot, in my opinion, of Zelensky's policy. He seems to have a slight soft spot for China. I think his hope is he's hoping to sort of sway China toward Ukraine's direction, but that is simply never going to work. And it's sort of like a hopeless cause there. And all it does is kind of make it look a little bit odd to say that because China obviously does not support Ukraine, or otherwise they wouldn't be supplying weapons and also dual-use goods to Russia, basically helping Russia fight the war against Ukraine. So, on this, I do not agree whatsoever. China is definitely anti-Ukraine, and they try to hide it on the political front, but in reality, they are definitely not for Ukraine. But, Enforcer, what say you?
China has given billions and billions of dollars to the Russian Federation. I don't like him, but beyond that, to be entirely honest, I think Zelensky is wrong. The Chinese do not have any good intentions whatsoever against Ukraine. They are largely neutral aligned or slightly Russian leaning. And so for that reason, that sounds like a pretty poor statement to make. It probably has a reason. It's probably trying to sway the Chinese into believing that they could end up getting some kind of a benefit out of Ukraine at the end of the war. But don't trust China. China is asshole. But with that, I hope that does address that well. You know that clip I'm talking about, right, Matthew?
Yes, I do.
Oh yeah, don't trust China. China is asshole. It's like he's right. It's like he's freaking right. But I would disagree with that statement. And there's not really a lot of analysis that we need to go into. I think you all know why. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, hello, Margaret Hemsley. I just saw you. You said hi, and I was like, oh, hello. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, the corgi just crawled in my office. This is a rarity at this time of the night. Typically, corgi's in bed, but he just crawled into the office. So I'm going to try to get a picture of him here in a minute and send it to you on the Discord to show the audience. Yeah, Mr. Warrior, he's down here on the floor. He's just sort of like moping. He's kind of like tired looking, but he crawled in here for one of the rare times.
What the hell is Mr. Worky doing out right now? Like he's just, hey, I'm out. I'm just wandering around. What's up, man?
Let me get a picture of him real quick before he takes off or anything like that. Just hold the floor a second.
I'm gonna hold the floor because y'all got to see a little Mr. Work. I'm sure he looks exhausted right now because usually he's in bed about an hour and 40 minutes ago, but for some reason he's out and about right now. We have no idea. It must be my mom's down here somewhere, and she just let Mr. Worgy out. Maybe because he was, a little antsy or he didn't really want to go to bed yet. But Mr. Worgy is a little stubborn like that. Sometimes he just doesn't want to go to bed, although he's exhausted. So I bet you the picture we're about to get is going to be fire. It's going to be a pretty funny one.
Let me get the DM pulled up real quick and let me forward this picture. Let's see. I got 2 of them there. That should do them justice.
All right, so
they should be coming your way.
All right, so let's get him up on screen. Oh, little Misa
Kind of dark though.
Dude, he looks like a little torpedo. He's got like the sploot going on right here. Look at him.
Take a look at that.
Man,
goodness.
He is tired, man. That's his little tired pose right there. But that is little Misa Warg. Y'all very rarely ever see Misa Warg or Shiba. But that is little baby Mosu Warg. We have like a million different ways to say his name. But that's the little baby right there. And he is so tired. And he's just hanging out in the office. That is crazy, man. I'm looking at him there and I'm like, dude, he is pointing like in a specific direction, man. He's like the guard dog right now. And
he's right at the door.
Yeah, he's looking straight out the door, like perfectly straight aligned with it. He's the sentry dog, I guess, for Matthew's room. I don't get one. I just have, guns, like guns a dozen. Because of the set and the gun review stuff. So I don't think anyone's going to mess with me. But Matthew's got Masuwa Wargis backup. But with that, I hope that does show y'all Masuwa Warg a little bit. And also, in case y'all are wondering, what kind of nicknames does Mr. Corgi have? His actual name is Mr. Corgi, but I'm sure y'all have heard us say everything else in between. Here are a couple of the nicknames that we call Mr. Corgi in this house. Lil Grishak, I don't know where I came up with that one. I just call him Grishak for no reason. And it doesn't even have a basis name, it's just a fake word. And then there's Masuwa Warg, Misawa Warg, Liwurgi, Misawergi, but every Mr. always turns into Missa, for some reason. I don't know why. I guess it's just easier for us to say. And then let's see what else. What other nicknames do we have for Masuwa Warg, Matthew?
Mr. Wargi. Let's see. Just Corgi, Mr. Corgi. No, I don't call him that.
Oh, that's Shiva, actually. No, that's Big Baby Booty.
Yeah.
Is Shiva. But let's see here. What else?
Oh my.
Oh my. But there are so many cute little nicknames for Masuwa Warg. But we love the little baby. He is a sweet little precious thing, but he is so tired right now. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And I see everyone saying that Masuwa Warg is a beautiful baby boy, and he is a beautiful baby boy. Look at him down there. Like I'm actually showing the side picture you have of him, Matthew. Look at the color of his fur. It's such a beautiful color, and not only that, he has a very fox-like face. It's a very foxy little face for a corgi. He's a beautiful one, and Shiba is too. It's just that Mr. Corgi is the only one we have a picture of at the moment. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, showing y'all Masuwa Warg. And it's time for us to move on into the next one.
All right, so moving on from our poll question, we're now moving back into our super chat questions. And first up, we have one from a channel legend. It's Walter A. Lakota Jr., the LSA bosun, and he puts in a $50 support. He says, "Aloha, the Enforcer Matt, and LSA from OG Ellison Bosun." He said, "Ukraine needs the constraints and go full in. In maritime fact, lead line is a line, meaning rope, with a lead weight used for finding depth and bottom in a waterway, and take a live chat question.
That is really cool, actually. I did not know that. Because you see, I always thought that the ropes had nothing on them, like when they measured depth and all that. For some reason, that's what I always but that is really interesting, actually. That explains how they would actually be able to measure anything, is because they have a weight on it to keep the line taut. But still, really cool. And I got to thank you so much for the support, Walter A. Lakota, and sharing that naval fun fact. And I would agree that Ukraine does have to start going all out, but I have a feeling, well, really, honestly, not a feeling. I think they ought to do that a little bit later from now, maybe a couple of months in the future, because I'd largely have to agree with Zelensky. I think that the front line should be stabilized, and that the Russian offensive should be thrown off kilter, and then a Ukrainian offensive and an all-out attack begins by Ukraine. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and thank you so much once again, Walter E. Lakota, for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, and also being our OG Ellison Bosun from the Merchant Marine, which is amazingly cool. I remember way back in the day when you sent us the challenge coins of the USNS Loyal, and we still have those coins here to this day. I actually have it on my desk. And I got to thank you so much once again for being a channel legend, and not only that, doing an amazing thing in the Merchant Marine. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to none other than, well, actually, we got to get that live chat question, by the way. And the live chat question goes to Sergeant Carnage, who says, I've heard you guys speak on ATACMS quite a bit. And do you know if we're also sending GMLRS as well?
GMLRS. Let me make sure to Google that, because I am fairly certain that those are already there. Let's see here. Let's see, the guided multiple rocket launch. Yes, those are actually already there. I believe these were provided by the United Kingdom, Sergeant Carnage. So, great question, and my answer to that question would be yes, they do have the GMLRSs currently inside of Ukraine. We haven't heard about them being used a lot, but we have seen video evidence of them in the past being used with M142 HIMARS. We don't know if the M142 HIMARS that were firing them were British made or really British owned before they were sent to Ukraine, but we do know that the munition itself is provided by the British. And so with that, I hope that does address that question incredibly well, Sergeant Carnage. And thank you once again for the support and making this channel possible and helping us to keep this thing rolling, because people like you make this thing a reality, Sergeant Carnage. And if it wasn't for folks like you in the LSA who stepped forward and did something they didn't even have to do, which was support this channel, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. We wouldn't be able to be living what's practically the dream for Matthew and me, being able to do something like this war analysis and news coverage. And I've got to say, we are greatly thankful for you. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, let me grab something out of the live chat here. This next one is going to go to none other than BC Skyman, yet another channel legend. I feel like we say that about pretty much everybody at this point that throws in a super chat these days. It is the channel legends absolutely carrying and supporting the channel, and huge shout out to you, BC, for that $50 support. And he said, appreciate you guys, and the only YouTube channel that gives us accurate news and doesn't put me to sleep. And chat question, please, and Slava Ukraine.
And I love to hear the very important part. We don't put you to sleep. Thank the Lord. Yeah, thank the Lord. Because you know what the worst thing people say in this chat is when they say, oh, thank you so much for running the stream, Enforcer. I play it to go to sleep. I'm like, oh no, I'm like, we're that boring. We're the damn ambience soundtrack in the background for these people. That honestly, like, I'm joking around right now, but that is one thing where I'm like, ooh, I'm like, dang, that kind of is like a burn. Like, it's meant as a compliment by folks who say it, but it does feel kind of like a burn. But I'm glad to hear that we're not putting you to sleep, BC Skyman, and I'm glad to know that we're able to keep up enough energy on this stream every single night to be able to keep people engaged. I think that's why we are the largest Ukraine war stream to run on a daily basis on the internet, is because we don't put people to sleep, and that is something that speaks for itself, I would believe. We're the only people, but all right, and we've reconnected, so we are back. So sorry about that, everyone. But beyond that, something that I gotta say, a lot of people don't believe in the philosophy of not putting people to sleep. Almost everyone out there puts folks to sleep. We don't, and I would have to say that the end result speaks for itself. There has already been 42,000 live views tonight, with 5.5 thousand people still here at the moment, and that is something that no other channel has been able to replicate, and not only that, no other channel has the least spring army anyway, so it's not even like if they replicated it, it would matter. But that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and thank you so much once again for support, BC Skyman, and you know it, we're about to go grab that live chat in honor of you. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
And the live chat question in honor of BC Skyman goes to Sinfinite Channel, who says, what's going on with the Russian gas reserves?
The Russian gas reserves are being depleted, about 600 700,000 barrels per day of usable fuel products. And from what we understand, it is going to be depleted by the end of this year. That's really all the information that we have, because fuel reserves are spread out pretty much across the entirety of the Russian Federation. So it's really hard to talk about it on a specific monolithic kind of a statement, because it's not really a monolithic thing. While the concept of the amount of fuel is monolithic, the actual storage locations are not, and for that reason it becomes a little bit difficult to try and be able to put that into metrics and talk about it much more than they're just consuming hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil products per day that they don't really have, and they're going to be running out really soon. Also, something else interesting I'd like to share with y'all is that here in the area of Birmingham, Alabama, down here near Pelham, if I remember correctly, and down right here, this is actually plantation pipelines, I believe, oil silos right here, which is pretty cool, because you would just, you would think that there wouldn't be any oil silos in Alabama until you see out here all these little dots are oil wells. Well, actually, I believe some of them are natural gas wells, but a large amount of them are also oil wells as well. And you can actually see the Cahaba River shooting range right here amidst the wells, which I've actually been to that specific shooting range, and you would not believe it, Matthew. The road ceases to be the road, I think. Let me see. Where does it cease to be the road? It's somewhere right up here. Yeah, it's right here. So the road literally stops being paved exactly right there, and it turns to dirt. It's an actual dirt road at that point, and you drive it all the way up, all the way around, and then all the way to this range right here. But the whole thing is dirt, and I was blown away because I thought that every single road in Alabama, even in the sticks like this, was paved, but they're not. And so that was an eye-opening thing for me. But anyways, I thought I'd just share that enlightening fact that we do have dirt roads still in Alabama, although it doesn't really seem like it anymore. We do. But with that, it is now time for us to move on to that next question. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And thy next one is going to go to Panama Floyd, yet another old guard. Tuches, that carp. And Panama Floyd puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Panama, for that very generous support. And he says, sorry about the Cowboy Bebop joke about Mr. Corgi, but y'all should go listen to the song that I mentioned. And otherwise, why do we give our dogs names if we just start the nicknames? And one from the chat, please. I don't know why that is, Panama Floyd. We feel compelled to give the dogs or at least to us, probably 10 or 15 different nicknames, and the dogs already have names, so I don't know why. It's not really shortening the name any, because Mr. Wardy and Mr. Corgi are basically the same thing, but hell if I know. But anyways, I just like to call them nicknames. It's just some weird little thing that we do. I think a lot of other people will probably do as well, but Enforcer, what say you?
I don't know why, Panama Floyd, and also, Matthew's talking about Mr. Word. Which is a pretty common one. We'll walk in a room and see him sitting like that, and I'll go, oh, look at the little Misa will work. Also, a very common one, I think from both of us, is Monsieur will work, which is some joke that he's French or something. I don't know. I don't even know why we came up with that. But beyond that, I don't know why we do that. I think the name, just giving the dog a name is to start off the nicknames. I think that's what it is. So that way there's a base for the nicknames. I would guess. But let me think. Sheba's nicknames don't even relate to Sheba, though, because we call her Little Wumpus and a whole bunch of things like that. So, I don't know. I really don't know why we give them names. I feel like we ought to just call them dogs and then give them nicknames as we go, because the nicknames are what we really end up using entirely, and we never call them by their actual name beyond that point. But still, it's totally fine to joke around about Monsieur will work and the little baby Sheba on this channel, as long as you don't talk about eating them or ending them. But still, thank you.
Ending them? Oh.
I want those guys' addresses so that way I can end them. It's bitch, our address is everywhere. It's we've been doxxed 90 times. It's go find it.
Pull up.
It's like, do some effort, get some spine. It's like, if you're going to make a threat, follow through. And if y'all don't know what we're talking about, someone on Twitter made a very public death threat against us. The death threats are common, but this one was a very public one where we got to easily see it and deal with it. And we were both like, are you kidding me? And what was so stupid is that the guy lives in New Zealand too. So it's like, so what, are you going to get on a plane and take like an 18-hour flight to come here and get your ass beat? It's like, I wouldn't do that. Like that would be the longest flight home you ever felt. And it would be technically the longest flight home ever, because I think the flights to New Zealand are truly the longest ones in the world.
I think the fella like rethought everything. He tried to play it off as a joke after I recited his whole childhood history to him. I think he decided it's time to call off the threats because it could go sideways.
Yeah, he did. Once again, the suckers don't realize that the Lee Spring Army secret police will find out everything about you if you make a threat like that, and you will be reported to the authorities. People just don't learn. Like, I don't know why. They don't, but they never do. It doesn't matter though, because you know it's like if someone comes here, I don't think it's going to end poorly. I'll put it that way. But you know, it's I just don't get it. I don't get the craziest people like that. Like I don't know. Like it's just being completely honest and leveling with y'all. Y'all think that there's not a lot of crazies out there in the world, because I used to think that there wasn't until we ended up running a YouTube channel, and then they just come out of the woodworks. It's like, where are these people coming from? Like wanting to kill you just because you're on a show. It's like if I wasn't on a show, would you want to kill me? It's like I wouldn't even be on your radar. So what the hell's wrong with you? Like it doesn't make any sense at all. But we ended up deciding just to live with it because, you know, what else are we going to do? And also it's kind of honestly hilarious to watch people think that they're like the Punisher or something and they're going to end us or something. It's like, come on. It's like, do better. Be better. Your mother's disappointed, and your mother already, your mother already got a one-way ticket to the United States by having a train run on her across the whole Pacific Ocean. But beyond that, but with that, I hope that does address that well. I didn't mean to conduct a murder right there, but we'll just leave it at that. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that as best as I possibly can. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Panama Floyd, because it is folks like you who helped to make this thing possible. And also, I hope I was able to address the whole thing about the dog names well. And also, don't worry, I don't sweat jokes, Panama Floyd, because I know you're a real one. But with that, we will make sure to take one from the chat in honor of Panama Floyd. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
And this one goes to Zen Master in the live chat, who says, any update on NATO troops going to Ukraine to train troops?
Yeah, we've heard that it's getting closer to happening, but we have not heard about it being definite at this point. But a lot of people are starting to say that it's coming around the corner, and it will most likely happen. But I don't know. We'll really have to see. I'm kind of a little reluctant to say that it will certainly happen, because it probably won't, in my opinion. But you never really know until the final moment. But we hear that it's being seriously considered. That's all we know at the moment. And so with that, thank you so much once again, Panama Floyd, for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and the next one is going to go to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support. He says, Enforcer Matt, can we have an update on Krinky? And they will be loving the lack of Russian Air Force on Crimea.
And yes, from what we understand, Krinky is still being controlled, at least slightly, by Ukrainian forces. We are believing that it's around maybe 50% of the town is under Ukrainian control. The Russians were able to retake some of it, but also Ukrainian forces hold Kazachi Lahri at the moment, so they actually have a pretty wide swath of the river that they're controlling. Going off of that, we haven't really heard much more about Krinky. We haven't heard about glide bombs being fired on Krinky or being dropped on Krinky. So at the moment, it seems as though the Ukrainians are holding half of it, and that's kind of the status quo situation at the moment. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, the best I can, because, you know, it is what it is. And with that, we're about to be moving on to the next one. But Matthew, I saw something so interesting, Matthew. We talk about people giving legitimate death threats, and then we have people going, oh, what is this? You know, it's like, what do you mean? What is this? That is, man, I'm telling you, man, suffering from success. Because if we had said this stuff around 100,000 subscribers, everyone would be like, "Oh man, I'm sorry." Now people are gonna go, "Oh man." It's like, do you have death threats put against you? No. It's like, so why in the world are you acting like it's nothing? Why are you acting like it's not? Come on, tell me. But anyways, with that,
You know what's funny? You know what's funny? I was gonna say this on air, but by the way, when somebody makes a threat like that, like I keep an eye on them from that point forward. Like I keep an eye out, like just to observe, just to make sure they're not actually a real nut planning to do something. 99% of the people that say stuff like that are keyboard warriors. They don't actually do anything. They're scared to death to do anything. But the one who made that threat is sitting there trying to play it off right now as we speak, like in real time, saying that was a lie. That's a lie. I never said that. Blah 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 blah. Even though we have like literally images of it, showing that. So it's like, you have to explain that to somebody one day. Depending on which country's authorities picks it up, you have to explain that to someone.
That's an absolute lie. I didn't say that. Like the secret police don't have pictures of it. It's like, come on, you gotta be better than that. I mean, once you make a post like that, you gotta understand there's at least like 50 people who work in the Lee Spring Army that are taking pictures of this stuff. There's literally at least 50 people with that picture of that tweet. You gotta do better than that, than just coming out with a flat out lie like that. But that's okay, because we do know that you're probably going to be speeding around your little town in your BMW, trying to, worry, oh God, the cops are coming for me. And maybe one day they will. And if they do, we're going to be laughing our asses off. I'm not going to lie. But beyond that, hope you recover from COVID well, and I hope that everything else is all right with you, because someone like that, you gotta have something more serious with you, mental illness wise, than just COVID. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, fairly well. And
Vincent Velatario said, "It's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank. It's just a prank, bro." Man, that's literally what they're doing at this point. They're like those pranksters that go up and like pretend to like stab somebody, and the person's like scared for their life. And they're, "Oh my God, they're trying to kill me!" And then they like pull out a gun on him or something. They're like, "It's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank. It's just a prank." It's like, dude, what kind of prank is that? There's no prank. It's like you just scared the man to death.
Dude, I love the pranksters, man, who like will do like I'm not saying I love them in like a serious way. I love them in a very sarcastic way. I love the pranksters who say they're conducting pranks, but it's property vandalism and injuring people is all they're doing. It's like, that's not a prank. That's just being a douchebag. It's like there's no prank involved at all. Like at least to me.
I saw a couple of those guys, those YouTube pranksters. One of the guy was wearing an ankle monitor, he was like locked up and was out with an ankle monitor on, was doing YouTube videos, like throwing pillows and like store items at people's heads and stuff like that. And then he got rearrested, and now he's actually in prison. It's like, my God, man, these are literally criminals like on here doing pranks these days.
Dude, and then the people who do like the social experiment stuff, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna do a social experiment," and then they like take like a $5 fill up from KFC and they just slam it in someone's face as hard as they can. It's like, what kind of social experiment is that? It's not even funny. You're just hitting people with like a bucket of chicken. It's like that just seems like an asshole thing, like I don't know, y'all. Maybe I sound a little bit outlandish, but I honestly don't like to be a douchebag to folks like that, like throwing stuff at them or hurting them or something like that. But anyways, with that, I hope that does at least give my thoughts on it, my 2 cents, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat, this one is going to go to Richard Hawkins, who puts in a $25 donation, and thank you very much, Richard, as well, for that support. He says, "What are Russia's confirmed aircraft losses for the last week?"
Russia's confirmed aircraft losses for the last week have been under 10. I can't give you the exact number because usually you don't break it down on this channel by week or by month. It's just by day. But I do know that it's somewhere under 10. I believe it may be 6 to 7. Maybe if I had to give you a rough number. So they are taking losses. It's just that they're not extremely high losses. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I possibly can, Richard Hawkins, and thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you do help to make this thing possible. And I wish I had a better answer for you than a rough approximate, but I think that's about the best I can do at the moment. But still, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Rob Horvath, who puts in a $20 donation. Thank you very much, Rob, for that support. And he says, "More pierogies for the boys." And take one from the chat, please.
Yeah, I love pierogies. And thank you so much, Rob Horvath, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because we are going to eat for those pierogies. I love pierogies. And we will make sure to take one from the chat But before we do, I gotta say thank you for being here forever, Rob. You've been here for ages. You've been here since the dawn of time on this channel, and it's great to know that you're still here with us. You're still enjoying this channel, and you're still helping it to keep on running. A real one, Rob. You are a real one and an old guard for sure. And so with that, Matthew, what is that live chat?
All right, so the live chat question goes to Geek Hippie, who says, have the ATACMS played a role in defending Kharkiv?
ATACMS really haven't played a role in defending Kharkiv, because we still haven't seen the Ukrainians using ATACMS across the Russian border in the Russian oblasts. So I would have to say no. At the moment, it appears that ATACMS are pretty much only being used within the deep areas of Luhansk and also within Crimea. That seems to be where ATACMS are favored to be used the heaviest. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for asking a really good question, because no one really knows a lot about where the ATACMS are being used right now, but that's the information that we have available to us right now. And so, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Steve's Gardening Adventures, who put in a $10 donation, and he said, I finally got it done, and now I can send super chats.
Hey! And thank you so much for the support! And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running! That is incredibly cool, and I gotta thank you so much for getting her done and helping to support this channel and helping it to keep on running, because you're making it possible. Every single person who supports this channel is how we make our living doing this. This is how we do this as a job, and I gotta thank you so much once again for appreciating this channel enough to actually want to support it, because,
Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, we get no respect around here.
but still, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to LSA Sergeant Figment, also known as Smudge, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, LSA Sergeant Figment, for that support. He said, hey boys, and keep up the great work. And will Putin withdraw his forces from Kharkiv, or will he leave them to die? And also, feel free to take a real question from the chat.
And we will take a real one, LSA Sergeant
A real
Figment.
one, as opposed to a fake one.
Man, mustard. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much once again for the support, LSA Sergeant Figment, and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who make this thing entirely possible, and I gotta say that it's great to have you here tonight. It's also really cool to know that you are a veteran of the IDF paratroopers forces. That is incredibly cool, and I gotta thank you for being a very interesting person who's here on this channel. And not only that, you've been here for days, like not just days, you've been here forever. Like it's been an incredibly long time. You're in here almost every single night, and I greatly appreciate that. We always love to see you in here. And also, let's see here, and I'm wanting to make sure that I'm getting this super chat correct, because he actually has a couple. Matthew, this is the one that says, let's see, are there any fellow paratroopers in here? Is it that one?
No, this is the Hey Boys one.
Hey boys. Oh boys.
Hey, them boys.
Oh, whoa, Jack, whoa! I'm not seeing the Hey Boys one for some reason. Can you reread it again?
He said, hey boys, keep up the great work. And will Putin withdraw his forces from Kharkiv, or will he leave them to die? And take a question.
And I would say, I think he will most likely end up withdrawing the forces, because they have to be used in other offensives elsewhere, most likely, if they want to conduct offensives. So I have a feeling they will eventually end up withdrawing due to poor performance of the offensive and unsatisfactory results. And so with that, I hope that does address that question well. And also, we will make sure to get a live chat, LSA Sergeant Figment, in your honor. But still, thank you greatly once again. And Matthew, what is the live chat?
All right, and our live chat question this time is going to go to Sphere, who says, do you think we will have World War III in the near future, as China seems to be backing up Russia more recently with Putin's visit?
I'm not really sure if they are, to be quite honest, because we haven't really heard of anything positive coming out of China at the moment. And if something positive did happen, the Russian government would have said it immediately to try and throw off the Western world and all that. So I would say maybe not. I mean, they certainly are not pro-Western, that's for sure. But I don't know if they're going to become pro-Russian, the Chinese. So I would have to be honest with you. I think they're still waffling on the fence, or they may even be about to push the Russians away. One or the other. But who really knows how they'll go, because honestly, China's kind of a loose cannon at this point. Not in like a wild, unpredictable way. It's just that they could go either way right now. They could go towards not supporting Russia or towards supporting them because they're right there at that threshold where they could do either. And so with that, I hope that addresses that well, at least in my opinion, of what the Chinese are and what they may be doing. Because that would actually be my best take on the Chinese for now. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Thank you for helping this channel keep running. Thank you for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Greg Carmen, who throws in a $20 donation. And thank you, Greg, as well for that support. He says, sorry, I've been away. And I have noticed, Greg, and it's good to see you once again. He said, what is the latest on the F-16 deployments?
F-16s have not been deployed in Ukraine yet. From what we understand, the F-16s are soon to arrive. We believe that they're going to be there by late May and early June, which were the time frames that we laid out on this channel. It appears that those have now been set in stone, and they will arrive during that time. And that's all we know at the moment. We do not really know the exact quantity or number that will be arriving in the initial batch, the first one that will be shipped, but hopefully it will be a sizable number of those aircraft, at least 8 of them, hopefully. And so with that, I hope that gives at least our best knowledge on what was happening in that direction at the moment, and hopefully we hear more positive news coming out. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Barry Woodward, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Barry, as well, for that generous support. He says, LSA is there for the LSA in challenges and supporting the new LSA members. Slava LSA, New World.
And slava the Leaf Spring Army, and long live the Leaf Spring Army. And I gotta say that it is great to know that folks like you, Barry Woodward, are here to support the newcomers of the Leaf Spring Army. There are a lot of them. They don't come in as fast as they were for a little bit, I will admit that. But they still come in large numbers. I mean, we got 400 new members of the Leaf Spring Army just yesterday. And that is a huge amount, an unbelievable whoppa of an amount. And I gotta say that we are so happy to have every single one of y'all here. And I love to know that all of the old guards of the Leaf Spring Army take the new ones under their wing and bring them around to the ways of the Leaf Spring Army. Because I love to see that people bring the no politics rule from this channel across the internet kind of as their gold standard from that point, because isn't it so pleasant to be on a channel that isn't shoving a political opinion down your throat, like a domestic one? Like, I honestly find that to be quite nice. And what's crazy about that, I'll actually tell you all this because this is water under the bridge a long time ago. Matthew, when he first came on the channel, actually wanted to try and bring politics on. And I told Matthew back then, I was like, Matthew, we do not want to do that. I was like, politics is terrible. It's a hellhole. It's a cesspit of nothing but anger and fighting. I was like, we want to avoid that. And now, like 2 years later, after we went through that, Matthew's like, dang, you're right. And we honestly both really enjoy having no politics on this channel. It's a actually incredibly nice thing, not just for y'all, but it's also incredibly nice for us as well. Hey, Matthew, I was wondering, do you have anything to add to that? Considering that was something that was big back in the day, like when we first started the channel.
Well, I mean, for me, being a political science person out of college, that was natural for me to want to talk politics. I'll be honest with you, there were some brawls that happened at my university when there was discussions of politics. And for some reason, the political science like courses are very heavily dominated by one side of the politics thing, which we're not going to get into. But there would be some absolute brawlhalla going on in these classrooms from time to time. I didn't partake in it, by the way. I didn't get involved in all that junk. I just wanted the A, and I got the A, magna cum laude. But anyways, I gotta say, it's not good to talk politics on the channel because it turns nasty every time. Like, guaranteed, every single time it turns ugly. But that, I've learned, but I've reformed and forced. Are you happy?
I'm very happy, Matthew. I wasn't trying to get that out of you. I was like, I have a convict that I have converted and rehabilitated. Say something. I was like, I wasn't going for that. I was just going for you saying, oh yeah, it's actually really nice. And then I was like, oh no.
I just want to say that I'm very happy that I've been given this second chance at this whole life, and I turned a new leaf now. I've decided to give up politics and move on to neutrality.
I'll tell you all something though. I'll say this with complete frankness. I think a lot of people need to drop politics unless if they're actually at the voting booth that day. It's a nice conversation over maybe some drinks, in a very, very casual one at that. But beyond that, getting really involved in it every day is just completely a pointless endeavor because, it's like no matter how many people scream, no matter how many people riot, nothing changes because of that. And they just make the world more unhappy and more miserable. And it's like, just save your political opinions for yourself. And just if you feel a certain way, go vote a certain way. That's what the voting system is for. And that's honestly how I think the United States should think of it. Because back in the day, there used to be a saying. They said, don't talk religion or politics with other people. And that's exactly what we do on this channel. We do not talk religion or politics with y'all and get into our opinions and y'all's opinions and all that. And look at how nice it is to follow that rule. I mean, it's actually incredibly nice to do something like that. No one gets into fights much. Fights are very few and far in between, and they're not politics related. It isn't a never-ending blood bowl of goofy ideologies. It's nice here. I like it, and I thank you so much for the support, and I thank you for enjoying how we run this channel. Because if it wasn't for folks like you who supported this thing, we wouldn't be able to make this channel. We wouldn't have been able to make this channel what it is, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running either, because y'all give us the ability to do and say what we want on air. And whether y'all enjoy that or not is one thing or the other, but if y'all enjoy it, y'all get to support the channel if you feel like it was worthwhile and help us to keep it rolling and help us to keep saying what we say. Y'all give us the ability to do what we want. We're not bound by sponsors. We're not bound by AdSense here on this live stream. We can do whatever we want. And it's really thanks to y'all. And so with that, thank y'all so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Super Bonker 9000. We have the return of a legend tonight, and he puts in a $20 donation. And Super Bonker, it is good to see you once again, and the Super Bonker 9000 is still hard at work. And he said, howdy enforcers and LSA friends, and I'm still here occasionally and still yell, Igor! And the chat question please, and Slav Ukraine.
And Igor! Soyu! Can you believe that guy's been dead for like a year now? That's how long.
Year.
Yeah, almost a whole year. I think it'll be like a few more months, maybe like 2 more months, and he'll be dead for a year now. It's like, that's crazy that happened so long ago. It felt like it was like a week ago. But beyond that, hello to you, Super Bonker, and hello to the rest of the Lee Spring Army friends of Super Bonker 9000. And it's wonderful to know that you're still here, because Super Bonker 9000 is an absolute legend, not just of the Lee Spring Army, but NAFO as well, to the point that a peon, I believe, is named after Super Bonker 9000, and a Lego kit is named after him as well, which is really cool. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and helping us to make this thing possible, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here on air right now, and we wouldn't have been able to be here on air in the past. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we will make sure to get a live chat in Slav Ukrainian. What do we got, Matthew?
And the live chat question is going to go to Leonce Pierre, who says, hello, enforcers. It looks like more and more countries, including the US, are talking about sending boots on the ground to Ukraine, at least as training advisors. Thoughts?
I would have to say it's an interesting idea. I don't really think it'd be that provocative if they were just sent as advisors and kind of instructors. I don't think that would really piss off the Russians enough to start a third world war. So I wouldn't be against it, but it really just depends on what the diplomatic fallout from that would be. If it's serious enough, maybe we want to avoid it, considering that we've been trying to avoid the third world war the entire time. We wouldn't want to start it just by trying to send some instructors into Ukraine. So I would say I'm a fan of it unless if it did start, unless if it was known it would start World War III. Why am I stuttering so much? I have a stammer. This is the King's.
Hey, Jack, I've always had a stammer. Stammer.
I was paint, paint, or something like that. It's just like, what the hell? Wait,
always resort back to this. Always go like this. Let's see here. Hot Dog Man was a bad dude. He ran a bunch of stupid boys, and Xi Jinping. I mean, let's see here. Anyways.
No, better yet, like this. I was down there. I was down there in the market, and I was on a hot air balloon, and a fish came out of the ocean. Mr. President, what do you think about the state of Maryland? Old Bay, spices, Nice.
Uh,
Whoa, 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 whoa!
You
I
gotta
have
get
to
close.
go. Like, it's
Come on,
like,
you gotta get close. You gotta go. That's what's been wrong the whole time. You see, that's what's been wrong. Man, that creeps me out so bad. I'm not gonna lie. Like
oh
that
man.
whispering stuff. It creeps me out.
Oh goodness, but you know, like to make sure, folks, that we make this fair, I got to go to the other side here. You know something, man, that gets me? Millions and millions, billions and billions, trillions and trillions. It's like we get it. It's like we get it with the one. You know, it's like trillions, billions, millions. We don't have to get them multiple. But anyways, with that. I hope that doesn't. I hope that blanket statements that fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, man, can you reread that super chat just to make sure we didn't miss anything?
Let's see here. Well, it was super bonkers. Let me go back up to it. He said, "I'm still here occasionally," and yell Igor.
And so I think we did cover that one pretty well. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Super Bonker 9000, absolute legend. And we rabbit holed on those voices, and I hope you enjoyed those incredibly well. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment yet again, who puts in another 10. And thank you very much, Sarge.
Hey!
He says, are there any fellow paratroopers in here? Andrew, since I'm sending you my jump wings, that means you're now obligated to earn them by jumping with me over to Florida Keys.
No. Wait. No. Now, I will be honest, I have wanted to skydive. I think it would be kind of cool. But at the same time, I want to live. like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm honestly scared of a shoot failure doing skydiving. And I was talking to someone a while ago. God bless this person, a very, very nice person that I know. The guy is a former FBI agent, and poor guy's gotten in a bad shape lately. It was a terrible accident, and has left him in a tough shape. But beyond that, he told me a story of when he was a skydiving instructor. He wasn't there the day it happened, but they were doing a skydiving instructing school, and someone jumped out and they, I guess, either didn't have a chute or the chute didn't even deploy at all. So they just hit the ground, and he said that everyone who was there said that even from hundreds of feet up, it sounded like a watermelon split on the ground when that person hit. And I was like, yeah, I was like, and also he said he got there afterwards, and the parachute was kind of like draped over the remains, but he said it was a pretty gruesome scene at that. And that is one thing that I'm scared of with skydiving, is that I'd end up being the splat. Because a lot of people may remember as well, Thompson, the King of Random, who was a big YouTuber back in the early to mid 2010s, he actually ended up dying in a skydiving accident as well. And with him, the King of Random channel also died with it, which I would hate for that to happen with the Enforcer channel, where I went and skydived and then I didn't bounce when I hit the ground. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I'll say Sergeant Figman, but maybe one day I will. It's just that I'll have to overcome my fear of possibly splatting. It's not really the fear of splatting, because that would be instantaneous. It's the fear of knowing that I have to fall for a while until I splat, which lets you know that it's imminent at that point, that death is coming. There's no way out of it at that point. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one. But still, thank you once again, LSA Sergeant Figment, for being a real G and a sergeant of the Lee Spring Army. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here. Also, let's see, who's this? Oh goodness. But anyways, our next one here is going to go to Khan, who puts in a $10 donation, and thank you, Khan, very much. He says, meanwhile, Russia is leveling cities with glide bombs dropped from 50 miles away, and AIM-260 Joint Advanced Tactical Missiles, or JTIM, or JATIM, air-to-air missiles have a range of 120 miles. And where are the F-16s?
The F-16s are on the way. Everyone stay calm. And also, the AIM-260s are expected to be delivered to the military this year, but I would not want to see those in Ukraine, considering that is brand new technology. It would be a lot better to send them the AIM-120 AMRAAM, which I believe has a similar range. Actually has a range of about 86 nautical miles, which is less. But beyond that, I have a feeling that that would be better to send to Ukraine than the most advanced system we have that hasn't even made it into military service at the moment in the U.S. And we never want to send anything over that may be a national security risk if it was to be captured by the Russians and let them in on very sensitive or really intimate knowledge of our weapon systems that are brand new. That could be very dangerous for national security reasons. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does answer those questions incredibly well. And of course, thank you for being an absolute true G and a channel legend and helping us to keep this thing running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Greg Carmen and also Stan T. They each put in a 10, and they did not leave a comment though, but huge shout out to both of you, because that support is what keeps this channel running. It keeps the jokes flowing, it keeps the news flowing, it keeps the coffee flowing, it keeps the videos flowing, it keeps the tweets flowing, it keeps the Patreon floating. So huge thanks to you all for that. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank y'all for the support. Y'all didn't leave a comment, but the support says a lot without even leaving a comment. It helps us to be able to make this thing possible, just like Matthew was saying. And I thank y'all each massively for enjoying this channel enough to want to support it and help it to keep on rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bruce Lee. He puts in a 10 and says, get them pups some Scooby snacks. $10 for the fund. LSA. And hello there, Marmot. Get a bug of salt for that fly. Hey.
Hey! And let me go get the marmot. It's marmot time, baby. Let me go get it.
Pull him out.
1 second. 1 second.
Oh, man, it went dead quiet there. I was like, what happened?
Stand by. 1 second. Stand by. Stand by, Governor.
Governor. I want that Marmot, Governor. Bring him out.
It's loading in,
Don't
Governor.
be shy. Bring him out.
Hey! It's the marmot.
Hello there. Oh, man. That Marmot's looking real caked up. Oh, man.
You sick prick. Something like that. But still, I gotta say, it is wonderful to have the marmot here with us tonight. We love the marmot. It is a large rodent-like creature, native to the lands of really the entire world. And we'd love to see it. We'd love to see it here whenever we can. And I also gotta say, oh, Governor, how's the YouTube running? The fly is currently out on vacation. We do not have an expected return time. Bollocks! But anyways, I gotta thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that shows the marmot fairly well. And can we get an LSA in the chat for the Lee Spring Army marmot, Alan the marmot? Can we get one? I would love to know. And with that, I hope that does address that quite well, at least the marmot. And could you reread the super chat, Matthew, so that way I can make sure that I addressed all of it?
They said, get them pups some Scooby snacks.
Oh, we love to get the puppets Scooby snacks. They actually get these things called flower bones, and they love them. It's like crack hitting the inner cities in the 80s. I mean, like, it is the thing they crave. And violence is had for those bones, and that's why it's like crack hitting the inner cities in the 80s, because it just creates, like, just violence, raw violence. Like, those dogs will fight each other for them. So that's why we have to keep them kind of separated when they eat them. Otherwise, there's going to be corgi blood on the ground, and we don't want corgi blood. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that the best I can, I tell you, the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for supporting the Corgi Fund. And we're going to get the next one.
All right, and before we move on to our next one real quick, I saw Mark Anthony say in the live chat, he said we need a bot assault, like the bug assault. And it's funny you mentioned that, Mark, because I'm actually currently wearing a Bot Begone shirt. The design is not released. It's a prototype, and I'm testing it currently. And I must admit, this is quite a fine one. I like it. I've worn it actually a good bit, and I love it a lot. The design looks cool as well. Not to plug the Patreon. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just telling you where you can find the image. If you want to see it, it's on Patreon. I don't have it available right now, but it's over there. But the shirt is very cool. It's not going to be released probably this month, but probably the next month. But we have something else even bigger planned for this upcoming merch run. But just want to put that out there real quick. But Enforcer, do you have anything to add?
I don't actually. You covered that one very well. And so we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here is going to go to, let's see, it's going to go to Slava Free Something, who's back yet again. Look at that, he's back. And he put in a $5 donation. And welcome back. He said, Привет from your favorite Russian. You are all probably wonder where I have been. I have joined the Russian Freedom Legion. Slava Free Something.
And thank you so much for the support. And also really cool to hear that you joined the Legion. I hope you've been having a fun time in there. Sounds like y'all are a little bit busy up in the KHARKIV area at the moment. But still, thank you so much once again for support. Great to have you around. We've been wondering where you've been. And it's good to hear that things are going good for you. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running because folks like you help to make it possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a super chat from Amos and Speedy Bang Bang. Who puts
Very
in a
nice.
five. And they said, how can Russia import fuel if we keep destroying their oil depots and fuel terminals?
I cannot understand what he said.
He said, how can Russia import fuel if we keep destroying their oil depots and fuel terminals?
Because they don't have the knowledge. I don't know. Really good question. I don't know how they're importing it. But I believe they're importing it over land routes from like Kazakhstan, formerly known as Kazakhstan. But I would have to say, I think that's how they're getting it. But they're not getting much of it from what we understand. But it is starting to jack up prices globally. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you once again, Amex10 Speedy Bang Bang, for asking an interesting question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also, let's see here. Our next one is going to go to Jason Carpenter, who throws in a 5 and says, thanks for another great show. You're killing it, bro. Question from the chat.
And thank you, Jason Carpenter, for enjoying the show. You're killing it, Jerry. Killing it. Gold, Jerry. That's gold. But still, thank you so much once again for enjoying the channel. Thank you for supporting it. And we will make sure to go and grab ourselves that live chat. And so what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Brian Chi, who says, has Russia reconstituted its military fully, as claimed by some report in the BBC recently? You know how that makes it sound like reconstituted? Like those freeze-dried eggs they give you in the military, and you put the water in the bag and stuff like that, and you shake it up really good, and then you got like the easy eggs. That's reconstituted.
That honestly, man, that's what I was about to say. I was about to like reconstitute. It sounds like some cereal thing or like a food item. But yes, I would have to say I've heard about that. I do not believe that's true because where are they getting the tanks? We already know they're running low on tanks, so how are they reconstituting an army when they don't even have enough equipment to really do that effectively? I call cap. I'm going to have to call cap on that one. But still, thank you for the support. Thank you for sponsoring that live chat, and I hope I was able to answer that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to ShadeX27, who puts in a 5. He said, Nate the lawyer gives a very good opinion on why this war started. He said fossil fuel resource control. Putin wants total control. Ukraine threatened it.
That's a stretch because there are so many lands that produce gas and oil. I mean, Russia would have to invade and conquer the entirety of the Middle East, as well as Iran and also Ukraine, to control, and also Romania to really control a large amount of the world's oil. So I'm honestly going to have to call a cap on that one because it's not really allowing them a monopoly. It's more so a strategic concern with NATO, and that's far more obvious and far more clear to me than that hypothesis that was put out. I'm not saying it's a terrible one. I'm just saying that it sounds a little bit outlandish, at least to me. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Fred Mathewson, who puts in a 5 and says, the light is off. I think they heard me.
Oh, yeah, I did see that in the speech. Didn't you, Matthew? The light was off.
Was it for real? Go back and look.
Well, I'd have to go back to YouTube. I mean,
wait, never mind. Yeah, go back and find out. I was like right there. Never mind.
Yeah, but they did have the light off. I did see that, and I saw that super chat come in, and I looked, and I was like, oh yeah, they do. And you were right. They turned it off. It looks like they actually listened. What do you know? And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you once again for the support.
All right. And also, by the way, I saw Andrea Fed say tomorrow night is the fundraiser and go LSA. And yes, tomorrow night is Sunday night. It's the fundraiser night. And the Enforcer and me are considering a new charity we've been looking at. We haven't made a final decision on it just yet, but we do a lot of extensive research before we actually promote a charity on this channel. We reached out to one, which is pretty popular, that a lot of other YouTubers have been working with recently, and they ignored our email, so they ruled themselves out. and we will not work with them. But we have seen another one that is more than willing to work with us, like a good charity probably would. And this one is very promising. They've raised $75 million for Ukraine last year, and they buy all kinds of medical aid and also food and also shelters for the Ukrainians. So a really good charity, by the way. And before announcing it, we're going to do some more looking into it, make a final decision. But got some good things coming. But with that, we have our next super chat, and this one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang once again, who puts in a 5 and says, I wonder if those blue circles were examples of identifiable landmark features that gave their position away.
I think that's what it was. I'll be entirely honest. That definitely was what it was, is that they were pointing out the things that allowed the Russians to figure out where they were. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Dell, who puts in a 5 and says, not sent to sleep, more like an alarm clock for me. Keep strong and forceful. Had 3 ATS on my tiny channel 2. They are space cadets from UK.
Oh, that's really cool. Isn't that neat? I like that. Nice to hear. And I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And nice to hear you got some space cadets around. And beyond that, thank you so much once again for the kind words and supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running, because folks like you help to make it possible and help us to keep this thing going. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And I see someone said, "Oh, come on, man," to something, and I'll quickly say something. I'm not going to make it too pointed, too direct. That person has said some incredibly nasty things about us in the past, and we will not have the mention of that person in particular here on this channel ever. And also, the fundraiser they're working with is the one that will not reach out back to us, although we're trying to see about working with them, and that is quite a deliberate act by that group as well. And so with that, I hope that does address that well as to why we kind of have a no advertising policy, and we strictly enforce it, especially in those kinds of instances. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Butchie777, who puts in a £5 donation. And huge shout out to you, Butchie, as always, for supporting the channel with very heavy donations, £5. And thank you very much for that. And also, huge shout out to Cody Wilson as well. He put in a 5 and did not leave a comment either. But huge shout out to Cody and Butchie. And Enforcer, what say you?
And a huge shout out to Cody and Butchie. Thank you to both of y'all for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Y'all didn't leave comments, but the support, like I always say, means a great deal and helps us to make this thing possible and keep it running. And so thank y'all once again for support and helping this channel to keep on going, because if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Mr. Lunchtime, who throws in $5 of his lunch money. And thank you very much, Mr. Lunchtime. He says, FYI, I'm not a bot, but how many high-ranking LSA members do you think are bots? And great work, guys, and stay toasty, my friends.
Not really a lot of them are bots, because we actually end up dealing in the background with a lot of the higher-ups in the LSA, at least a lot of the old guards and channel legends, we end up having a decent amount of communications with. So really none of them are bots. We know that for certain, because all of them have backgrounds, lives, and all kinds of interesting hobbies and stories to share. So not really a lot of them. But that's something that is very interesting. We actually found this out as well recently. Apparently a lot of YouTubers are apparently too high and mighty to talk directly to their audience, so you have to pretty much go through like a click to get to them, and we're like one of the few people who you can just directly message or contact on Twitter or any other way, and we'll just talk to y'all, which I kind of find weird that people don't do that as a norm. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that the best I can, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Gunfox61. He threw in a 5 as well and said, look up Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, North 7th Street. It might beat Philly.
And where is that again?
It's North 7th Street, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Oh, Jack, are you from Pennsylvania?
I was from
stutter.
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Let's take a look.
I'm not from Harrisburg.
Come on, load in, Jack. What the hell's going on? Come on.
Damn, it's taking a long time.
What's that billboard?
Hey, it's scaring Google. Google doesn't even want to show it.
Look, they drove the truck through and the Super Bowl and Walmart's and drugs, lots of drugs, high quality drugs, and high voltage. high voltage, apparel, and design. I mean, this doesn't look that bad. It kind of looks like Birmingham a little bit. And that's not that bad.
Yeah, it looks a little. It looks just a little bit rough, but it's definitely not the worst we've seen.
I mean, hell, Philadelphia was got to be one of the worst. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, you're in Philadelphia, good luck. Founding fathers gave up on that place a long time ago. But anyways, not that bad. It's not that bad. Yeah, it's not bad. Not bad at all. But with that, I hope that does address that. Wait, hang on. Free the 6TR block. 24G, 30K. Up and down. But with that, like to see it. And then we got the Riva's Deli and Cafe. And let's see, what do we have here? We got 518. And we got rest of the city. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that the best I can. And kind of shows off the 7th Street. Because the 7th Street is one hell of a street. And there's the Pennsylvania State Capitol right there. And you know what? Let's go a little bit further up the street. Like right here. And let's see what this looks like. Okay, so we got a nice parking lot over there. No, this ain't no hood. Like this place is all right. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for support and allowing us a small hood review. But whoa, are you from Scranton? I love Scranton. Where in the world is Scranton, anyways? Like, I don't even know where Scranton actually is. Scranton. Well, I'm at a loss. Maybe it's near Philadelphia. Nope. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Anyways. With that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And thank you all once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to R. Williams. He puts in a 5 and says, "Did Ukraine hit a Russian oil tanker tonight? I just got here."
They did hit a refinery up in the area of Viborg, but I didn't hear about them hitting a tanker. So I would have to say they have not hit a tanker. It was a refinery, and I hope that answers the question well. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to DVN303, who puts in a 5 and says, "Look up this place in Vietnam."
And we are in Vietnam, in the Mekong Delta, right on the Mekong River. And so it's time for us to get down into the city and check it out. What we got going on here. Wait a minute, this is no hood. This is no hood. This is a normal place. This place is nicer than some American towns.
Where's this again?
This is in the Mekong Delta in South Vietnam.
It's really not that bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad at all. I mean, looks like hell, it looks better than Philadelphia. I'll say that. Also, that building's kind of cool. But oh my, that dude, the fire warden around here must be having aneurysms looking at these because goodness gracious. Anyways. With that, I thank you for the support and allowing us to take a look at that DVN. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
And up next, we've got Barry Woodward in here putting in a 2 and selling peanuts. He said, peanuts, get your peanuts.
And get them. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And thank y'all once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Eric Kress, who's got a profile picture out here showing off an LSA mug. I'm telling you what, look at that. That's so cool. And Eric said, "Look up East St. Louis, and thank you for the news."
And you're welcome for the news. And I know about East St. Louis. Ooh, it's bad. It's really bad. It's so bad. It's unbelievable. Let me drop y'all down in here. Y'all about to see hell. Oh my heavens! It's like the damn movie scene from Fallout, the TV series. It's rough. What can we say? It is just rough. It's a pretty tough place. It looks even worse here when it loads in. My goodness. This is bad. This is actual hood. Like, the whole city is a hood. And they don't have any money, and the city's falling apart. I watched a documentary on this place. I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two. And I got to thank you, Eric Kress, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And thank you for once again reminding us of the absolute squalor of East St. Louis. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to the general, who puts in a 2 and says, how much air defense does Russia have left?
It would be very hard to ascertain exact figures, but we do know that the Russians have so little air defense that there is really only present air defense in Donetsk, Luhansk, and also in Zaporizhia, and in a smaller amount in Kherson, and anywhere else, including Crimea and the rest of the Russian Federation. It appears that air defense systems are completely non-existent. So while I can't give you an exact number, just based off of the number of air defense systems we used to see at the beginning of the war, spread out throughout not just Russia, but inside of occupied Ukraine, versus what we're seeing now, there is a significant decrease, and I would assume that there are only maybe less than 100 air defense systems left at this point. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Lion Rampant 1875. He put in a 2. And I must say, I've seen some fights get started about the super chat tonight. People got very vehement about it. There's some very strong opinions about this. He said, shout out to Usk, which is the Ukrainian boxer, for his win in boxing tonight. He beat Tyson Fury. And on that one, he did win. And big congrats to him for winning that fight. There were some people, though, that were saying, that was a close call, and that could have gone either way. And I saw some people fighting about it in the live chat. So all I'm going to say is the Ukrainian guy won, and shout out to Ukraine. But Enforcer, what say you?
And congrats to the Ukrainian guy. Sounds like he won. Great to hear. And I didn't even know that that Tyson Fury did more than sell wings. I can't believe they're also a boxer as well. Very impressive stuff. Good job on Tyson Foods. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to the Backhoe Mafia, who puts in a 2. And I'm sorry, we cannot send that. That will not be sent. That's interesting. But thank you very much for our support. And we also have a 2 from Dell. He says it was D threats, not 3 ATS. Typo, LSA.
And thank you so much for the clarification, and thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, I thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, I see some people saying that one of the guys had something to lose. I think they both get paid anyway, regardless of who won the fight. So, like, even if Fury walked off like the losing side, like he did, I still think he gets paid like I don't want to misquote it, but I think it's like 100 million or something like that, some crazy amount of money, or 20 million. So it's in the millions. It's somewhere in that range. That's huge money, even for getting beat up and losing the fight. So, you know, that's not too bad to get beat up and get that much money. That's not too bad. I might get beat up for like 100 million or so. But anyways, moving on here to our next super chat. We have one from Bex Chitwood, who put in a $50 donation and said, and also thanks for that massive support, by the way. He put in the 10th super chat on a live stream. He said, thanks for no politics. Good boys and more Scooby Snacks and LSA.
And LSA! And thank you so much for the support, Bex Chitwood. And thank you for your 10th super chat to this channel in its history. That is incredibly kind of you, and we're greatly appreciative of that. And also, thank you so much for enjoying the no politics rule. We try our best to make sure that's enforced, and I feel like we've done pretty good. And thank you for putting in more support for more Scooby Snacks, so that way our little baby Mulsa will work, and baby Sheba will be able to eat and be fed for quite some while. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one. But also, thank you, Bex Chidwood, for being a channel legend. And on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Quantum Fighter, who puts in a 5 and it says, check out Thompson's vlog 50-56 Malamo, colloquially known as the Chinese wall, used to sleep on a sofa on one of those balconies. Hood life.
Let's see. Oh, we found it. That was quick. So let's see here. This must be it. And so let's drop down. What we got? Oh my goodness. It's the Great Wall of China. Goodness gracious, dude. That's like an actual slab. Like a slab with windows. I don't like it. But still, that is interesting. In a balcony? I'm not even seeing a balcony on this thing. Like, It is balconyless. It's just a flat like wall right here. But still, that is interesting to hear and interesting to see. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and showing us this interesting structure right here, and letting us know that apparently life is tough up here in the Chinese wall. And I would assume because that rice mortar does not stick itself. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And there is not a next one. That is all of our super chats, and it's no cap. But once again, huge shout out to everyone who has donated tonight to help keep the channel running, because it's you, the viewers, just like PBS, that keeps the thing rolling. And we appreciate it very much. And we're now moving into our live chat questions, because you don't have to throw in a super chat on the channel to get it answered.
You don't.
And of course, up first, we've got the Morse code decoders. Tonight, Clove Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rumpelstiltskin, and also David Millsaps. They said tonight's Morse reads, Russia is getting overwhelmed yet again. Long live the LSA, and the LSA will never die. And Slava Ukraine, Slava LSA.
And that's the sound of money. Because, and that is the Morse code message tonight. Y'all hit that dead on the nail. I don't even know what else about to say otherwise, but y'all hit it dead on the nail, and I gotta congratulate y'all for getting that Morse code message correct on the 815th day of the war. Very impressive stuff, and y'all got it down to the T. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the live chats proper itself, and we're going to be answering live chats for the next 12 minutes. We're going to be answering live chats until the top of the hour. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the first live chat question goes to Quantum Fighter, who says, why do you think Israel haven't sent a single system to Ukraine officially?
Oh, they have. They have sent systems to Ukraine. No, not officially. That's true. I don't know why.
Patriots, I think.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't know why. And they're also talking about retiring them and destroying them, so it's like, why not? But Israel does Israel things, kind of like how Turkey does Turkey things. The Middle East is kind of an odd place. But with that, I hope that does address that at least the best I can, because the enigma of the Israeli government's mindset as far as that goes is something I can't even comprehend. But with that, I hope that does address that at least the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Butchie777, who says, have the Russians finished building the new railway across occupied Ukraine?
Yes, they have. They have ended up building enough of it that it's now usable, and they're now planning on expanding it and also extending it and making it a lot more streamlined and efficient. So the answer to that question is yes. And so with that, I hope that does answer your question incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got one from Beef Taco, and it's good to see you once again, Beef Taco.
Hey!
He says, Matt, does the enforcer believe that international support is dripped because A, countries are unable to part with weapons out of fear, or B, they don't want to appear too helpful out of fear?
I would have to say I don't think either of those are the option. It looks like many countries are supporting Ukraine with as much as they can. It's really just the United States that ended up not supporting them with everything they could. And so I would largely have to say I'm not seeing that kind of a deal out there. I'm seeing that support's getting there as best as possible at the moment. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to David Arguet, who says, what are the key geopolitical factors driving Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and how have these factors influenced international responses to the conflict?
Can you reread that one again?
It said, what are the key geopolitical factors driving Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and how have these factors influenced international responses to the conflict?
It is entirely a Russian versus NATO war. With Ukraine wanting to join NATO, the Russians wanted to stop it by forcing a war and invading Ukraine, thus creating a buffer zone in between NATO and the Russian Federation. And that's the entire beginning of the war. That's why it started, for the large part, even back in 2014. And as far as it goes now, that's why NATO countries end up supporting Ukraine, because it's an inherent interest for NATO in the Western sphere. And that's how it has ended up kind of changing the outcome of the war, or really changing the way the war would have turned out and who's supporting it. And so with that, I hope that does address that question incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and we have a super chat once again. This one goes to T. Abiri LSA, who threw in their 5th ever super chat on a live stream, and they threw in 20 CHF. I'm not familiar with that currency, by the way, but
That is a
thank you
Swiss
very
franc.
much for the support. Oh, Swiss franc. Wait a minute, they're from Switzerland?
Yeah, they're from Switzerland.
Wow.
They're from Switzerland. Oh, let's see here. CHF currency.
Switzerland!
Switzerland. It's a Swiss franc. It really is a Swiss franc. And thank you so much, Tang and Abiri, for enjoying our work and helping this channel to keep on running. It's greatly appreciated. And thank you so much for enjoying enough to support, because while we're doing what you're saying is hard work, you had to do a bit of hard work yourself to be able to get that support to help us out in the first place. And I got to thank you for that. And I got to thank you for the 5th super chat in the history of this channel in forever. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to DVN303 once again, who says, do you think that China is going to do the same thing that they do with every other poor country and loan the Russians money and then watch the Russians default on the loan and take over all their oil fields?
Yes. Yes, I think they would do something like that. That's a very Chinese kind of a mindset, to screw someone over like that. So I would say, yes, I think that's probably coming around the corner. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. Very good question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And believe it or not, we are down to our last question in the spreadsheet. We have run through exactly 22 live chat questions tonight, between the ones that were donated by the super chats and also the ones we've covered in our live chat segment. So with that, Enforcer, could you do the thing?
And so we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is lucky last person to put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Sergeant Carnage, who says, do you have an assessment of what Russia has left in the way of AA, and do you think that they are not being seen due to Ukraine's lack of air support, and will the incoming F-16s change that?
I have a feeling that Russian air defense systems are incredibly low in number, because we are not seeing them intercepting any Ukrainian drones or any Ukrainian ATACMS missiles. ATACMS missiles would be spotted on radar and would be able to be shot down by Russian air defense if it was present anywhere inside the area of occupied Crimea, Kherson, or Zaporizhia, but at the moment we are currently not seeing any of that, which is starting to show that there must be an absence or a lack of Russian air defense systems in larger numbers. That may also mean that they're having to conserve when these things fire, so that way the Ukrainian counter battery doesn't end up taking out the remainder of them. All of this is leading us to believe that the Russian air defense system numbers are low, although we can't get an exact assertion or an attainment of the figure. We do know that the numbers are starting to dwindle greatly, and for this reason, the Russian Federation is most likely trying to conserve their remaining air defense systems for only emergency situations. When the F-16 arrives in Ukraine and is able to equip the AGM-88 HARM and conduct anti-radiation missions, or SEAD missions as they're called, they most likely will end up targeting and destroying a decent amount of the remainder of the small amount of Russian air defense systems that are currently out there inside of Ukraine. That is, of course, completely dependent on the Russians being idiots, which they will be, and keeping the radar systems on until the time of impact with the AGM-88 HARM. Going off of that, I would assume that the Russian air defense is most likely going to be next to none, and they will be practically destroyed by the later point of this year, meaning that the Ukrainians will now have complete air supremacy both in the drones, missiles, and and the actual fixed-wing aircraft forces. And this means that the Ukrainians will have a lot more leeway to intercept and shoot down Russian aircraft operating within the offensive theater, and not only that, they will also be able to conduct their own deeper strikes into Russian territory or into Russian-controlled territory and start knocking out other kinds of vital equipment and systems. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every single one of y'all for watching tonight. 51,000 people have watched this stream before it ended, and there are still 2,900, well, actually 4,000 people here right now. I got to say that we were entirely appreciative to each and every one of y'all, and if y'all did enjoy, make sure to hit that like button, and make sure to subscribe as well, because all that makes us incredibly happy here on this channel, and we love to see and know that people enjoy this channel enough to hit the like button and help it to keep on running. And of course, I will see you all tomorrow for our Sunday night fundraiser at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. And once again, thank you all for another great stream tonight. And be sure to join us tomorrow at midday for the Short War Summary, and also at night as well at 10 p.m. Eastern for the nightly War News stream. And like the Enforcer said, tomorrow is fundraiser night. And to the dismay and the utmost hatred of the bots, we are going to raise another, at least, probably $5,000 for Ukraine. And with that, we'll see you all tomorrow. Slava Ukraine, Heroem Slava. And thank you all once again for another great stream, and good night.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.